So, welcome everybody. My name is Zach Cleghorn. I'm joined with some colleagues of mine. We have our moderators in the chat supporting us and helping us out. We have Mr. Thomas Brandt coming to us tonight to help us understand about the introduction to lean methodology. And we'll have Dr. Casey LaFrance and Dr. Brian Nielsen. Uh, Dr. LaFrance teaches over for industry in Illinois area and around the country. He's a global speaker and Lean Six Sigma philosopher and really dedicated to his craft and understanding advanced Lean concepts. He's there for that upper echelon kind of executive leadership level. Um, we've got Dr. Nielsen, who's I believe his title is Emergency Management. That's what his goal is or his role is, and he works for Washington State University. And I think he's a part of the state's response team, but I couldn't confirm that. But he'll be joining us a little bit later. All of these people speak at Lean Six Sigma conferences, education conferences, advanced manufacturing concepts. I'm a part of an association called Advanced Technology Manufacturing and Applied Engineering, so ATME, and they're a really good group. So they're going to be helping us out this week with understanding the Lean Six Sigma journey. This is going to be the Lean Six Sigma Greenbelt class. At the end of this class, you'll receive your Greenbelt credential. There's no cost for the Lean Six Sigma Greenbelt. Um, that is completely free. You will be doing a project and you'll be kind of built to kind of guide you guys along because we want you guys to pass. We want you to receive this credential. All of us are volunteering our time to help kind of educate the workforce. Now in the chat, can you guys put where you're from? Wow. All over the United States, globally. Wow. Welcome, everybody. So, I'm going to kind of kick things off with just kind of introductions. I'll be chiming in for more of the every day for the general concepts and kind of building us and kind of guiding us to where we should be through each day. Each session, and you'll get your syllabus and course material here in a second. But I want to kind of walk us through our moderation portion, just kind of the basics introduction. I want you guys to be attentive. I want you to be prepared. You'll have moderators, and the moderators, you'll be assigned your moderators shortly. I'd ask you guys to maintain professionalism. This class is built for the educated, or people that want to go into leadership roles in industry. We're going to talk about a lot of real world examples of how to guide project teams. I've worked in a plethora of industries, and I'm gonna talk about those shortly. And I'll actually have real world case studies that I've worked on that I'm gonna show you guys a glimpse of what we've done, so it kind of opens your eyes to everything. Oh, cool! We got somebody from the Philippines here. So we'll talk about the moderators here in a little bit. I want to ask you guys maintain professionalism. Treat this program as you would a professional workspace. You'll attend, this is a career credential. You're going to be able to share this credential on LinkedIn. And, I want you to build this as you're coming to a job and helping that industry grow. Because a lot of times Lean Six Sigma's about how do you grow industries? How do you grow in process improvement? How do you look at a process and say, okay, this isn't running on all cylinders. How do we improve it? And we're going to talk about the methodology and how it really is a roadmap on continuous improvement activities. Friday we'll be taking our Lean Six Sigma Greenbelt class or test. I ask you guys and say you have to attend all days. I mean, this is a class. There's really no barriers for you to be here. You need to be active and engaged in the class. We'll have discussion rooms, breakout rooms. So, this is, your appointed place of duty for, the 7 p.m. to 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Monday through Friday. Please don't solicit anything. Our instructors, we have a lot of cool resources we're going to give you throughout, to talk about your transition into the career and workforce. And that's our goal. I understand there's all kinds of resources out there. Just be careful on what you share. But for the most part, our main mission is going to be focusing on our project for our Lean Six Sigma Greenbelt, our Lean Six Sigma curriculum, and you'll have a student file, and I'm going to show you how to download that here in a little bit. So I make things super easy in this class. I really try to design these courses so it's designed for the working professional. And this program is taught all around the world. I teach this in community college systems, higher education systems, and I train all around the world as an industry trainer. I'm a United States Marine Corps veteran. I served in the military back in 2006 to 2012. And I got out and I struggled with my transition. And, I felt like for the longest time, I was struggling with coming back home and, finding a career. And then I realized that, these scars that I had through life really became maps to help others and guide them home. And so, I believe in trying to help people and grow their career. In the last 5 years, we've helped almost 72,000 veterans find careers. And that's something that I think is really powerful, and it shows a testament of, what this program can do to help you guys. And I really do believe my life's mission is to help veterans find and secure employment. And so that's what I do during the day. I go out and I train industry workers, and I work with education. I work with DoD industries. And it's a really cool experience to be able to come and take these examples of career, of how Lean Six Sigma applies in different careers and really take it back and show you guys, how to translate this over. And it's just going to be a really cool experience for you guys. I have my friends and my colleagues, and they are going to be really pivotal in showing you guys how to look at this curriculum with a new set of eyes. Everything we talk about is going to be real world projects. I mean, these things might be modified to a case study project, but these examples are, we're going to show you what the best practices of Lean Six Sigma are. Renee, good question. This is for everybody. Like, if you're trying to get a job, this isn't for one particular group. Like, I mean, like, my heart and passion, like, I'm volunteering my time for vets and service members and their families. Really, at the end of the day, this is for, hey, how do I use this to get a job? Well, what is this going to do for me? A lot of times we come to classes and it's like we just want to check that box. But it's more than that in this program because you're going to learn about real world things. How do you improve processes? You're going to learn from these experts. Uh, and it's really cool that they're fortunate to come and be a part of this program to help transitioning service members. So these are some of the industries I've worked with. I don't really know what was going on in this picture. I was going through a mustache phase, okay? But it was enjoyable. I'm glad I was there. And it's cool to be a part of these industries. And we're going to talk about some of these case studies and what I've worked on and, how Lean Six Sigma applies in different types of industries, manufacturing, banking, hospitality, emergency services, even in DoD entities, and show you guys different examples and case studies of how to do it. So if you guys are excited, you guys ready to kick things off? I want to just welcome you guys to the program. We're gonna go and we're gonna do our best to serve you guys. We're going to put our hearts out there. We're going to give you guys a lot of knowledge and a lot of cool resources to take and evolve your career. And at the end of the day, and at the end of the week, you're going to learn a lot of cool skills. And I just want to say thanks for being here. And so let's kick things off. So, one of the biggest things is like, oh, who you guys accredited through? Like, everybody freaks out about that. And you're like, dude, we work with government entities. Uh, I work with NC Works through this program. So they do like transitioning and helping people find careers in the industry. We do things with Amazon, Walmart distribution, WIOA, which is the Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act that was signed by Obama in 2013 as state funding or federal funding that goes into workforce training, and we're a part of that. And we work with community colleges all around the world, or community colleges, industries all around the world. My heart is going to be with veterans. So, I love you guys, and I'm going to be really vulnerable about my transition and my service and how I got to where I am right now. And hopefully that helps you guys. So, pretty cool. I want to encourage you guys to follow us on LinkedIn. That is probably one of the best resources um, for you guys. And in our zip file, you guys are going to download. You guys are going to have you guys are going to have the instructors' LinkedIn's. Add the instructors, and I'll give you guys that here shortly. But we do things with job postings, career support, and we really like to create a community of learners. If we can help you guys along your path, that means you can help somebody else on their path. And that's what life's about, guys. So we have over 800 people. I think by the end of the night, we might drop a little bit, we might grow a little bit. But for the most part, this is the bulk of where we're going to go. I'm going to get you guys a zip file. I'm just going to kind of walk you guys into it. Um, so your moderators, I want you guys to write this down who your moderator is, right? Um, Moderator one is going to be last names A through D. Moderator two is E through J. Moderator three is K through P. Moderator four is Q through T. And moderator five is U through Z. Don't worry about this bottom part. That was more for us. These are the moderators have basically put their names in the chat as moderators. So essentially, if your last name is under that category, that's your moderator. Whether you have moderator one or 1A or 1B, it's pretty straightforward. If you need to reach out to them, just send them a message, either in the main chat or click new chat and send them a message. I want to remind everybody this is not a Zoom class, okay? So if it's 2026 and you haven't used Zoom, I think you can get up to speed, but for the most part, I'm going to tell you, pay attention. This is where we're going to be. Open this file. We're going to do this example. This is how this applies. And so I just want to I'm not like trying to like challenge anybody's intelligence or talk down to anybody. I just want to be very straightforward with 878 people, because that means if I'm not straightforward, 878 people are going to ask me questions. So, pretty much this is your moderator. You're going to have this in your zip file. Let's go ahead and get you guys your zip file. So I'm going to pause the chat real fast. And it's only going to be open to the group. I'm going to show you guys how to register for your course material. So basically, you're going to input your name, right? Fill out your email. This is just the scholarship. Like basically, this is going to be how do we account for the demographics for the free scholarship? And basically, that's all this information's for. I'm not going to send anything to your address. It's just demographics for the scholarship. You'll input your information, what branch of service you were in. If you're in a current role, you'll put that. What branch of service you're in, whether you're a veteran, active duty, military, spouse, or even if you're a civilian, it's okay. I'm just glad you guys are here. I'm gonna put this in the chat. Once you get through, and I'm gonna put CEO, USMC. I'm gonna say I'm a veteran. For those of you that are wanting to advance past the green belt, there's going to be opportunity for you guys to do your black belt as well. Mostly everybody just does this, they just select yes, and we'll talk about that on Friday night, and we'll talk about it throughout the course. You'll sign for it. Basically, you agree to be present, participate actively, and treat all instructors and classmates with respect throughout the program. Uh, you'll hit submit. Once you hit submit, you'll say download your course materials. Once you download your course material, go to your download file and it'll be called Bootcamp Materials. I know that's a lot of instructions, but basically go through at the whole scholarship registration and download your course materials. If you're unable to download on a Mac, please use your desktop or laptop computer with Chrome or Firefox. So change the browser. I don't want a whole lot of questions of, hey, this won't open up on my government computer. This is a civilian course. Every working professional should have what? A professional computer or something like that. So if you're having issues, work with us the best we can. We're going to work with you. But these are the issues, and this is typically the resolution. It's just opening it under a different browser, but make sure you're using a computer. After you download the materials, open up the file, and then return to the program. Basically have this file open, and we'll go into it. In the chat, I'm going to put the link to register for the scholarship and course material. I'm going to make sure you have that. And I'm going to give you guys a couple minutes. Let's go ahead and make sure we download that material. And I'll come back and go into the material. I'm going to give you guys about 3 minutes to open up that material. The link is in the chat. Moderators, if you can make sure you're sending that out to the students, you just put it in the chat. I'm going to close the chat for right now. Everything, basically, walk you through the instructions to how to download. There will be a file and there's even a video going over it. Um, but give it about another 2.5 minutes and we'll go into the course file. But go ahead and download the course material. And you'll get the course material after you do the scholarship registration. That basically just enables you and says that's all who's going to be here for the week. Moderators, if you can make sure that that link keeps getting shared. That's going to be how you'll get access to the student material. If anybody asks in class, just kind of be a helpful student. Um, either they missed the session or they showed up a little bit late, but so that way we don't drag class along. If anybody asks any questions or anything like that. For the moderator, if you don't live in the US, let me see if I can fix that real fast. I think I can do FPO address, but I'm not sure. All right. If you live outside the US, just refresh that link. I added the ability to do like region. All right. All right. So this is going to be pretty straightforward. This student file, I try to make it very intuitive for you guys. Um, there are a folder for each day, and we'll kind of go through, but basically start at student zero. We'll go ahead and remove the ability to. But basically, if we go to zero, students start here. When you click on that file, there's several different options. There's a textbook. There's the Zoom link throughout the week, so you don't have to look for it. Moderator support, basically any type of registration, any type of issues. There's a lot of like frequent asked questions, student journey. There's the registration link, which is the same link you guys use for to register for the scholarship. Um, so the moderator, right? It doesn't matter if you're 1A or 1B, really just say moderator, they're assigned to their area. So basically, if you have a moderator, it's a 1A and also a 1B. You can reach out to either or, and they're assigned to you to help you. The 2 through 4, your student journey, talk about the different certifications through the week. We have tips for success, any type of frequent asked questions. I try to make this a very proactive course, right? There's 878 people. There's several of us. So, be proactive. There's a lot of good resources in this. I don't expect you to go through this the first night, but make sure you guys read through this after today's session. Um, we'll go through the different certifications. But for this week, Monday through Friday, uh, we'll be doing our exam on Friday for our Lean Six Sigma Greenbelt certification. Um, Again, attendance is required throughout the week, but you'll receive your actual Lean Six Sigma Green Belt credential directly after taking the exam. Now, a lot of people freak out like, oh no, this is a hard class. I'm going to fail the exam. Like, nobody's ever failed our exam that's taken it. It's a very straightforward exam. You know why it's a straightforward exam? Because we go over the answers with you prior to the exam. Um, so we want to make sure you guys pass this and able to get that credential. The last time we ran this class in December, there was about the same number. There was about 900 people in the last class. Over 200 were able to either get a job or apply for the job that they wanted because of this credential and the credentials offered through the week. Some of them did get the job. Um, and that's again, a part of the I guess our record of helping students land careers. So again, we're gonna do our Lean Six Sigma Greenbelt exam on Friday. Those that continue to stay forward will do the black belt portion in the exam for that as we go through. Um, You'll also be able to do your black belt exam Friday. We're starting to see a lot of that with workforce development programs now, especially with credentialing. A lot of students have already kind of sat through a lot of the managerial aspects of the Lean Six Sigma, and they're trying to evolve to that next step. So we open the doorway for you guys, but you have to get your green belt before you can move to the next level. But the cool thing about the black belt is it'll also come with the champion and then ISO 9001. So, those of you that are not familiar with ISO 9001, it's a quality management program, and there's different ISOs, but this is geared exclusively for management systems. So, how do I look at quality management practices and standardize things amongst different industries? And that's what that credential's for. We'll talk about that more as we go through. But you'll receive these three credentials at the end of the week if you choose to do your black belt. It's totally 100% up to you. Talked about accreditations, the green belt. So if you go to the zip file and go to one, the Lean Six Sigma Greenbelt syllabus is in there. It talks about the system and systems requirements. Some students last time didn't have the ability, like they maybe didn't have Word or, they weren't able to open up the file. Just stay along with the course, take notes. You should be taking notes. You have access to take notes on this program in the file itself, or if you want to bring a paper notepad or something like that. Most of our students choose to do that so they can write down the calculations. On your journey this week, journey two is journey through the week. This is designed for you to jot down your notes throughout the week. Currently, this folder is empty. You just click on the file and you can just start inputting notes there. It's just a place for you to save your stuff. Next, if you guys would open up data files throughout the week and then open up data cheat sheet. So data files throughout the week and open up data cheat sheet. Again, you're going to go to data files and data cheat sheet. So basically, our Lean Six Sigma project will need some data to coincide with it. So the data cheat sheet, this is examples of calculations, so you can take this beyond your class, right? You can apply all these calculations in your industry, and these different examples are for you guys to practice with on the group project and the assignments in class. Everything's pretty straightforward. We're going to show you why this calculation is this way and why it applies and how we've used it in different industries. The rest of the class, the rest of the files in here, we don't expect you to open them up until the class time or when we get to that point, but we'll walk you through. So again, make sure you're engaged. So I say, hey, we're going to open up this. If you guys go to your project, and I have different case studies of real world industries, of different student examples. I have your Lean Six Sigma project. I have a project template for the course and some project quantitative data. Again, we'll go into this and I'll show you where to go into it. I just want to show you where everything is so you have an overview. But your moderators will tell you where to go each day and what lesson we're going to be in what file. And I know it's a lot, but Lean Six Sigma is a very robust curriculum. It's designed like that because this is what industries are looking for. How do you have organization? How do you look at different case studies? What are some reflections of, okay, what are the best practices in these industries? And that's what these case studies are for. The next thing you can go through is to go on your Lean Six Sigma project and go to your project template for the course. It's a Microsoft PowerPoint document. So you go to Lean Six Sigma project. You'll have project template for course. These are a project template example. So from start to finish, this is how you look at a project. This is how you start the project endeavor. A lot of times projects fail because they don't have a good baseline. One thing I like about this course is you can take this project template and apply this to any type of continuous improvement as a guideline to be able to solve an industry problem. Next thing I want you guys to open up. These are some projects that I have in here. They're called, so it's under Zach's projects. Let me see if I can open this up for you guys. So we're in your project and we're on Zach's project. So, um, you can kind of bypass a lot of these things. I just wanted to show different examples. Um, but each day, Uh, I'm going to show you guys and talk about when I go to my portion. I'm going to show you guys these different examples of Lean Six Sigma projects that I've actually worked on. One of the first things that I need to introduce you to before we talk about different projects and things like that, um, is the DMAIC system and how to kind of understand what Lean Six Sigma is. It's, sometimes looked at as this incredibly complex process, but it's really not in a sense. It's best practices, best managerial practices in industries to apply in different situations to be able to form some type of continuous improvement activity. So these are real life examples that I've gone throughout my career, working in industries, working with Wildcat, looking with Wolf X-Ray, working with Mr. Beast, and I have some stuff with Mountain Pickles. Now, these aren't my only projects, but these were some pretty noteworthy projects that I've worked on. So I wanted to share with you guys, because before I did this, I was an economic developer for the state of North Carolina, and before that, I was an industry trainer. And then now, I train all over the globe in this stuff. So, really, we specialize in workforce development programs at Star Global. But, all of these industries, they help give you guys a good lens or perspective to look at when you look at continuous improvement activities. Day 1 through 5. If you open up day one, you guys open up day one, and I'll go ahead and open this up too. If we go to day one, uh, I have two things. Well, I have several things in here, but we have the vocabulary of the day. We have what the pre-recorded lecture is, right? This one's an older recording, but it's basically me going into a class with some students um, for each day material. So if you need to go back and look at the material, or you need more time to digest it, or if you just after this course want to go back through the course and find a certain section to understand it, I've given you the references to it. Each day, there's a pre-recorded lecture. There's a YouTube link that will take you directly to the lesson of the day. I encourage you for each day to watch the lesson going into the day. But if you can't, that's okay. These are just resources where it's like, hey, can we record this? Well, we've already given you the recording. Um, with so many students in here, we wanted to be able to streamline this so you have good resources when you leave out of here. Lean Six Sigma is not just about, how do I check a box in a class? It's more of how do I use this to enhance my career and look at how do I guide project teams in the industry. So go back into day one. if you go to introduction to day one, we have all the main topics categorized that we talk about through the day in each lecture. So this is just a good way to be able to use this file to help you in your industry. Kind of cool, right? So each day we have each lecture set up just like that. I try to make it pretty straightforward for you guys. Um, After day five, the control phase, there's options where we'll go into the Lean Six Sigma black belt categories. Thank you, Vanessa. Thank you. That was really cool. Thank you. For years it was set up differently, and I wanted to standardize it and make it set up for you guys. So thank you for the nice comments. Um, 5B through 7, there's going to be different certifications to how you like different certifications that we go beyond that, right? Like last class, they left with like 11 certifications and like safety, project management, well, OSHA, safety, project management, and different things. But our focus right now is the green belt. And, once you kind of understand how this stuff kind of rolls into other curriculum, like, let's say you wanted to do the Scrum, there's an opportunity for that as well. So that's the weekend seminar. We'll talk about that later. But gives you an opportunity to look over the curriculum for it. Um, so if you need assistance at any time, feel free to contact your moderator or classmate. They will direct you in the chat to the current location. So some tips for success. When in doubt, ask in chat. Be proactive. Review the notes, videos prior to each day. Follow the folder order. And if you're attending live and staying engaged, you should not have any issues. Um, and lastly, I want you guys to please, this takes a lot of resources to put together, and a lot of students are here for curriculum development and to eventually lead in the industry and find a great paying career. And so, the things you may say may be hurtful to people, and I don't want that. So just be professional and, treat everybody with respect. Everybody here's volunteering their time, and even you are volunteering your time and entrusting your time so you can learn some things. You know, the biggest thing with Lean Six Sigma that I see is, a lot of people they don't really understand how pivotal it is in industry. Um, Industries right now are looking for Lean Six Sigma professionals, and I see it from an economic standpoint, I see it from a workforce standpoint, and I see it from a military transition standpoint, working in these different transitioning points. And so this is a ballpark. This is kind of just a rough guesstimate. There's our highest black belt student that is reported is making like 210, 230, like 215, somewhere around there. Um, and a majority of our students, when they graduate and they land their career, are eventually in over 100K. So, that's pretty much the black belt range is around 100K. Greenbelt is going to be that middle level to upper level. They have a range. It's usually around 70,000. Now, of course, you can be a Greenbelt making higher than that. You could be a Greenbelt making lower than that. Just saying it from an industry perspective of job responsibilities. And yellow belt, this is more of like your entry level. I don't really worry about, I go straight into the green belt curriculum because the green belt curriculums relatively easy. It's basic arithmetic, and it's more of how do you coach and guide teams. And so, your yellow belts are more of that introduction level. Now, I've taught this. This is a class that I worked with Amazon a couple years back, probably about like 5 years ago. I worked with them in Seattle and I worked with their warehouse. And so this curriculum that you guys are going to go through, this is designed to be, workforce development related. So, what are the best practices that industries are using right now to secure candidates? What are some skills being taught to candidates in pre-workforce development training? And I keep saying workforce development. I need to find an abbreviation. But um, the goal here is how do we take these set of managerial skills and turn them into actionable items to transition you into a work-related, a workforce program or a career in the industry?
Wondering what the real value of a STAR Global College certification is? Let's break it down. At STAR Global College, your certification isn't just a piece of paper. It's a launchpad for your career. Live instructor-led certifications from world-renowned industry experts, global networking with professionals in tech, business, healthcare, and more. Real results. Most of our students report landing jobs within 90 days, and the numbers back it up. Graduates report better opportunities, stronger skill sets, and employer recognition across the board. Ready to turn your potential into a paycheck? Enroll at Star Global College and level up your future.
Mhm.
Welcome to Star Global College's flagship program, our Lean Six Sigma certification course, where over 97% of students gain employment within 3 months. This program is recognized by thousands of organizations worldwide and is designed to align with most industry and academic curricula, making it the perfect bridge between education and high-performance careers. Whether you're breaking into operations, quality control, healthcare, logistics, or leadership, Lean Six Sigma gives you the tools to solve problems, drive efficiency, and deliver measurable results. We don't just teach theory. We help you lead with confidence. Join the global movement and launch your next chapter with Star Global College.
So, with all that being said, welcome everybody. And that is your official introduction. So give yourselves a round of applause because we're about to kick off this program. And when I think about Lean Six Sigma, I talk about it being a set of managerial skills and best practices in organizations. But really, it's a philosophy, and it's more of how do you change an organization's culture. When I go in and I lead these projects with teams, there's two main issues that come up. One is communication. What do you think the other one is? Communication and training, right? In 2013, President Obama, well, I don't think he got enough credit for some of the things that he did workforce related. But he signed a WIO Act, which is the Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act. And that's where you started to see more resources being added to training workers in Lean Six Sigma or and other credentials, right? But you saw a huge growth for credentialing. And then now you're seeing more industries looking at credentials. Not saying that they're not looking at degrees and things like that, but they're valuing credentials a lot higher because it showcases to an employer that you understand the lingo of Lean Six Sigma, that you understand what are the best practices, what are some statistical tools that we utilize in industries today, and what are some softwares that industries use to do continuous improvement. One of the coolest things, if you stay with us on Saturday, is we're going to start talking about in the advanced leadership seminar, we're going to talk about AI integration. And you're going to start to see how Master Black Belt curriculum is now starting to integrate into machine learning. And how Lean Six Sigma's continually evolving and adding more best practices based off of technology. All right, talk to you guys about that. So cool thing about me, I'm finishing up my doctorate in business administration, and when I say that, like in the next couple weeks, I defend my dissertation, and like I'll have the official title. So I'm really excited about that. Um, this is something that I enjoy doing. I love education, and I think education should be affordable and should be accessible, especially to service members. So I want to, Tom, are you okay if I introduce you real fast?
One sec. Yeah, go ahead.
So I want to dive you guys into your first lecturer, guest lecturer. His name is Thomas Brandt, and I'll let him give a brief introduction, but he's going to dive into this. Tom, if you want to give a brief introduction, and then we'll send them on a 5 minute break, and then have them come back, and we'll kick off lecture one. Okay?
Okay, sounds good. Thank you, Zach. Well, hello, everyone. My name's Thomas Brandt. I'm a retired Navy chief from active duty and reserves. I retired out of the reserves in 2022. I had an extensive experience within the Navy, active and reserves in the 3M world, which is maintenance, material, and management, and in project management. On the civilian side, I have extensive experience as a maintenance manager and working within the lean world for a company called Carlisle Construction Materials. And then I've shifted my focus into project management for an organization called Bonneville Power Administration here in the Northwest. And in my particular area, I'm a non-technical project manager at the moment and seeking other opportunities within the organization itself. So I have been working with Zach I've been taking classes with him for the last 3 years, but I've been working with him as an instructor and helping him with moderator duties and other type of teaching and instructoral duties for the last 6, 7 months now. So I look forward to the class tonight and look forward to teaching with you, Zach. Thank you.
Yeah. So let's go ahead and thank you, Tom, and I look forward to seeing you guys get this kicked off. Let's go ahead and take our first break. We're going to come back right at the hour mark. Tom, if you want to go ahead and get your PowerPoint set up, I'll share my screen. But we're going to take a break and we're going to come back and we'll go into the first lecture with Tom. So go ahead, take a quick break. And when the timer comes back, Tom will kick off and share his PowerPoint.
Absolutely. Thank you, Zach. Hey everyone, real quick. This is the time between now until we start to share your LinkedIn's and do some networking on the side. But once we get started, we're going to pause on that as the moderators have already stated in the chat. Thank you.
We got a couple minutes. I wanted to just before I turn things over to Tom, I'm gonna put my LinkedIn in the chat. I post a lot of stuff about, veteran workforce development, transitioning service support, and a lot of good resources. Um, so feel free to add me on LinkedIn. I'm always here to connect with you guys. I love helping service members, and it's kind of just something I enjoy. So uh, if you want to connect with me, there's my LinkedIn. And this is a really good access point. If you guys have any questions or anything like that, feel free to reach out to me on there. Just be a little patient with me because, as you can imagine, my inbox gets a little full, but I'll get back with you. But go ahead and add me on LinkedIn, guys. And we got a couple minutes, and then Tom will pick up some things.
Yeah, before we get started, I'd put a note in the chat, but we're going to take a break about every hour and a half or so, and we'll just go on a 10-minute break. Does that sound pretty good, Zach?
Yeah, I think that works out. Yeah, that way it gives them a little bit of time to kind of stretch and
Yeah.
uh yeah.
So, so it'll be good.
And I'll open back up the chat, but again, feel free to add me on LinkedIn. Pretty good resource for you guys. And all of our instructors, their LinkedIn's are in the zip file, and I'll give you guys the ability to look at that a little bit later. But for right now, Tom, you want to go ahead and grab the screen? We've got about another minute,
Yep.
and we'll kick things off. I'll stop sharing my screen if you want to take over, sir.
You should be seeing my screen now.
Yes, sir.
Awesome. So,
Yeah, we'll go ahead and kick things off at the hour mark, but I'll check back in with you guys here in a little bit. You guys go ahead and enjoy learning from Tom. Thanks, Tom. I appreciate you, man. Thanks for helping me out.
yeah, absolutely, Zach. And if there's anything that comes up or something happens, Zach's just there in the background. You'll be able to take right over. So just
Yeah.
bear that in mind. So,
All right, Tom.
okay, it is time. Well, everybody, welcome to class. Thank you for signing up. Thank you for being here. We're almost at 900 people. That's well, minus moderators and such. We're probably right around the 885, 890 range. So this is an outstanding opportunity. And when I jump into this, I want to first ask, can someone just come off mute, one person, and just tell me what they think Lean Six Sigma is?
Yeah, let me do it this way, Tom. They
Yep.
don't have the ability to unmute.
Okay.
So, you could uh you could just grab them and then ask to unmute. Um,
Just here.
they could post it in the chat. Just have them do that.
Yeah, I that'll be easier. And for any other future questions or iterations of a question, just post it in the chat and then I'll read it out loud and we'll go from there. I think that'll be easiest. Thank you, Zach. So post in the chat, a few answers, what you think Lean Six Sigma is, and also too, don't be writing on the screen. Eric Dixon. I know there's a weird thing with Zoom where you can draw on screens and stuff. Let's try not to do that, please. So, okay, so yeah, go ahead and post in the chat what you think Lean Six Sigma is. Short answers is fine. Efficiency and manpower, waste reduction. Yep, efficiency, reduction of waste, methodology, limiting waste, process improvement, optimization. Oh, these are great answers. Absolutely. Streamlining processes, process improvement. Absolutely. Okay. So now we got the idea, DMAIC. Absolutely. Lean Six Sigma is a way for companies to save money by hiring specialists to come in and look at how their processes are going and optimize their processes based upon what they're seeing in their defect rate, and also to streamline certain areas where it's not efficient and it's not a cost saving. So if you're not saving money during lean, then you're obviously, and not when I say if you're wasting money is probably the better way of looking at it, then it's not a good fit for what you're doing. So why do we need Lean Six Sigma? We need it to give the best quality and the best output. Now, are we ever going to be at a zero faction of, obviously for optimization? And where I mean by that is, are we ever going to reach zero as far as defect rate? No, but we're going to be pretty close if we can get the right people in at the right areas. So, does anyone want to jump in the chat and just kind of give me a good reason why do we need it? Yep, it's waste reduction and process optimization. And by the way, I am scrolling. Efficient operational readiness, yes. Reduce waste, optimize, and return on investment, absolutely, over a period of time. Always going to be waste and defects. Data-driven results gain efficiency and effectiveness to improve processes, 100%. Will help me improve my effectiveness to finding and fixing problems to improve the industry and to save money. Okay. Those are all absolute answers. And so why do we need Lean Six Sigma? As we've been stating in the chat, we're looking at a cost reduction. So over a period of time, when we can identify those actual waste points in what we're doing to be more efficient, we're also going to save more costs, and we can reinvest those costs into reinvest the money that we're getting on ROI into other areas such as R&D, marketing, and areas that are going to improve our market efficiency as well. So, and also you're going to increase your productivity because you're going to have a system in place that your coworkers, your workers, your peers, and management all can actually follow that will bring the best results and the most optimal outcome, which in turn, for me, I can't speak for everybody, that increases my endorphins to want to put more effort into it and to be more positive about the work that I'm producing. Because I know that in the greater scheme of what the company is producing, I am contributing to the overall quality of a product and making it better. So job satisfaction goes into play in that. So why do we need Lean Six Sigma? So, if you look at the competitive advantage, you have marketing side of it, just mentioned the business aspect of it, where we're going to increase our profits and potentially reduce our losses over time. The consumer, the product, the person that's actually buying the product, the research, the planning, advertising, target, and then of course the design. So, and again, just bear with me for a second. I'm going to just kind of scroll to these chats. Can't improve what you can't improve what you're not measuring, and you can't define and measure without standardizing. Absolutely. So why do we need Lean Six Sigma? Because you want to go from the customer of being unsatisfied and this picture here, you want to have the 5 stars. You want to get to that end product. So behavior, and if you look at this, a bit of a word salad chart, but it's technically all of what we would talk about for Lean Six Sigma put into one slideshow. So organizational, expertise, cultural, interpersonal, fit, and social, management, knowledge, satisfy, result, growth, belief, collectively, and external problems, leadership. All of that is why we need Lean Six Sigma. We need to be able to organize our industries and organize our production into more efficient outputs. That way our economies are better, our economy of scales can flourish, and our trades can flourish across the globe. So KPI, the most important KPI. So KPI, of course, stands for key performance indicators and the key factors of Lean Six Sigma. It's keep people informed, keep people interested, keep people involved, keep people inspired. What I mentioned earlier about having the endorphins kicking in, when I feel like I'm contributing to a greater whole that's moving the ball forward for company success or societal success, or even just for team success, I feel good about it at the end of the day when I put the 110% effort in. It comes from, my military upbringing. It comes from my private sector and their mentorship and upbringing as well, that I always want to put the best foot forward. But what happens is having those systems in place from Lean Six Sigma helped for me to stay on those paths. So, yeah, let's go ahead. So why do we need Lean Six Sigma? Enhance efficiency and reduced waste, as we've been seeing in the chat. And thank you. Those are all wonderful answers. Improving quality and customer satisfaction. Cultivation of continuous improvement. So when we go through and we find a company that's failing, The first things you want to always look at, you look at you do their define, you see where the problems are, then you go through DMAIC process. But once you're done with the DMAIC process, does it stop there? Yeah, it's rhetorical answer. Of course it doesn't. You always want to be on a path of the preaching and cultivation of the culture for continuous improvement, because there's always going to be suggestions, always going to be ideas. Technology changes, process changes. So when you're actually going through and always making things better, you got to stay up to date with your technology. You got to stay up to date with what's the marketing trends. And that's where that culture of continuous improvement is. Always be open to ideas, always be open to team camaraderie and team development. So that's what that's talking about. And won't harp on that too hard. So continuous improvement thing of where you started at here, the 2 stars, we have an issue to now we're performing where we need to be at, and we're going to continue to grow as we grow our company and we grow our process improvement. So Monday, we're going through the yellow belt and talking about yellow belt concepts. As we transition through Tuesday to Wednesday and Thursday, we're going to completely go through the rest of the DMAIC process and go through the green belt to where Zach concluded on Friday. You'll be taking the test, and then we'll start branching into the black belt. So won't get into that too much right now, but just remember that's what we're going to be doing. And then the registration for the black belt will be issued on Friday. So after the test, unless Zach does make a change to that throughout the week, he will let you know, and the moderators will let you know as well.
Nah, that's going to stay the same.
Okay,
They'll also have Saturday and Sunday, but we'll talk about that later. I always want to get us into the program before we start talking about the advanced level programs.
absolutely. And so I'm just excited to be here for getting the green belt for everybody,
Absolutely. That's a
and
cool
just
thing.
getting it is, and I'm really excited for everybody. So without further ado, we're going to continue on. So what is the lean versus Six Sigma? What's the difference? So lean, we were talking about earlier, lean is your efficiency. It produces better results. Six Sigma. And put in the chat what you think the differences is between the two. I'd love to hear just some general answers. I know some already answered this, but I want to make this as interactive as possible. So go ahead and put in the chat what you think lean versus Six Sigma. Reduce variations and defects. Lean is waste and Six Sigma is defects. Six Sigma is a higher degree. One drives efficiency while the other cuts waste. Absolutely. Economics. Lean reduces waste to improve efficiency. Six Sigma reduces process variation and defects. Efficiency versus quality. Okay, absolutely. Those are great answers. So I'm going to go ahead and continue forward. So as we define lean, lean is leaning out your operation, trimming out the waste in your organization. Six Sigma is how much variation is in your process. So explaining Six Sigma. We're going to meet Sally here. Now, Sally has a flower shop. And in the flower shop, we're going to learn through this basic process that she's got a defect rate and she's got certain issues with the flower pots and breakage. So that's kind of setting the tone, setting the story. So as we advance to the next slide, Sally's cost, if we look at her cost, and you break it down to all these components, you have material cost, which includes vases, flowers. Yeah, Sally's got a funky nose. Yeah, she's a little under the weather today, but that's beside the graphic, we have the vases, we have the flowers, we have the vendors. So who's providing the vases? Who's providing the flowers? We have labor and wage. How many different actual employees is Sally going to have? What are her operating hours for these employees? And does the labor have a sliding scale of minimum wage to skilled labor? And what exactly are those positions and defining those? Yep, Sally. Thank you, Derek. Sally is allergic to the flowers. The overhead, the admin overhead, that these are costs we can't get around. Essentially, we call them sunk costs. So, admin overhead of the lights, keeping the actual rent going, or the taxes on the building, and then taxes here. Yes, Zach.
Oh, I was just gonna say she probably got a cost to fix that red nose too, but like I don't know why they did that to her like that. I'm so sorry to interrupt your lecture. I needed to come in with comic relief.
Absolutely. Yeah, they did it wrong with that one, that's for sure. So so those are all components that we have to look at for the cost. Now, Sally, outside of having, a cold issue and seeing the doctor, she's having a serious health problem right now within her actual flower shop, and that's the vases and the vases breaking. And so, as a Lean Six Sigma team, how are we going to help her? What are we going to evaluate? And just before we go on to the next slide, just for engagement, I'd like to see what some of your answers are as far as what do you think she's going to need help with broken vases? How are we going to go to this? Quality, are they breaking? Type, get plastic, vendorship, protecting and repairing them, vendors, supplier cleanup. Yeah, these are good. Packaging, material. Root cause analysis, better process, getting rid of broken vases, storage and shipping. Yeah, these are all great answers. Vendor quality. So, root cause, and then we're going to assess what we're going to be able to do to make it better through the Lean Six. Okay. She needs Lean Six Sigma. I think we're quality control, quality QA, QC. So, think about Sally's cost again. The vases, the flowers, vendors, training personnel, that goes into its supply, production quality, the overhead, the taxes, labors, and wage. So what is the DMAIC framework? So while we just introduced Sally, we have introduced the issue of her having her vases break. We're going to talk about where this is going to lead into the Lean Six Sigma conversation. DMAIC. Can anyone put in the chat what DMAIC stands for? Fine. Yes. Measure, analyze, improve, control. So remember that. Define, measure, analyze, improve, control. Very good. Thank you, Rolly. Thank you, Santiago. Thank you, Sylvester. These are all outstanding answers, and thank you for engaging there. So we're going to go here. So DMAIC, as we're stating in the chat, is define, measure, analyze, improve, control, which is your core value and your tenet of how you're going to get through with Greenbelt. And what the importance of this is a core component of Lean Six Sigma and a method for improving processes by eliminating defects and inefficiencies. So, interconnectedness. So when you learn DMAIC, you're learning awareness, desire, knowledge, ability, and reinforcement. And it's building on this step flow diagram. Define, measure, analyze, improve, control. And you're building the pillar and the tower for how you're going to be successful. Each phase builds on the previous one, so it's iterative and creating a comprehensive approach to process improvement. Okay. So defining the phase. With the phase, you're identifying the problem and the project objectives. So define the problem, discussion, confrontation, tactics, skills. I'm just reading a little bit here in this portion of the slide. Resolution, business resolutions. So in the characteristics, objective identification is this involves clearly defining the problem or goal of the project. Stakeholder analysis comes by identifying all the stakeholders and understanding their needs and expectations. Project charter creation. Develop a project charter that outlines the scope, goals, timeline, and team roles. And then last but not least, and of course, the voice of the customer. Gathering and analyzing customer requirements and expectations. Now, this could be a matter of opinion, but out of all four of these, what does the class feel? Answer in the chat is the most important part of these characteristics. Like which one has the biggest hold and value? Voice of the customer? Agreed. Because from the voice of the customer, you can get into the objective identification and the project charter creation. And from the project charter creation, you're learning where the stakeholder analysis is. But without the voice of the customer, you're going to be spinning circles, and then you're going to introduce things like scope creep and go off on bunny trails that are really not going to be effective and will waste time. And then, of course, as we're preaching about Lean Six Sigma, saving time and management, we want to be obviously practitioners of what we believe in. So with that said, voice of the customer, it's a choice that I would make. But some may argue that like object identification and product charter is equally as important, but the customer starts there. And so KG Knight writes, without the proper baseline, the whole process falls apart. That is true. So, okay, we're going to move forward. That was outstanding participation. Thank you. So Sally defines the problem. As we know before, Sally states within her flower shop that broken vases are causing a high number of issues. Yes, absolutely, Andrea. Andrea, it's no customers equals no business 100%. So for Sally's particular issue, she has all these broken vases and the high number of issues it's causing. So is causing customer loss. Let me go back. So with the high number of broken vases, it's not just causing customer loss. I mean, yes, it is. That's probably the most important thing because we're talking about the voice of the customer. It's also costing her time to have to remake new vases, to have the logistical nightmares. It's causing trust within her staff working there to see if she's actually really a purveyor and an expert at what she's doing. Safety concerns, OSHA. It could also go to vendor relationships. If they're actually bringing in revenue with these different flower shops, and then if someone's leaving a bad Google review that she's constantly breaking vases, vendors may say, well, I could go get this products to another flower shop, and she could have a loss of business there too. So it could not just be customer loss, it could be vendor loss. Taxes could go up because maybe someone sues her because they hurt their foot or cut their foot open on the floor because of it being broken. Cost and loss of time, employee morale would be impacted. And as we're aware of, as Lean Six Sigma practitioners, morale is very important in the contribution factor as to how we're making everyone's life better and more efficient. So we're going to move on to the next slide. Work cohesion. The voice of the customer, VOC, as we said. Purpose of the voice of the customer, or we can say VOC for short, is a term used in business and quality management to describe the process of capturing customers' requirements, expectations, understandings, and product improvement feedback. So why in the chat, just for this question here, why is it important that we capture the voice of the customer correctly with all these particular areas of understanding? So we're talking customers' requirements, expectations, understandings, and product improvement feedback. Why is that very important? Replacement, shaping new faces, to understand the needs. Yep, they are the mission. Improvement. This is the cornerstone of what we're doing. Yes, so we can meet their needs. Improvement, drive profit lines. Absolutely. It's how
I
we
think
make money.
I
Go
think
ahead,
too,
Zach.
is it okay if I chime in, Tom?
Yeah, absolutely. Please.
I think too, like when we look at the voice of the customer, if we're not adhering to that, we're not meeting expectations. And like, if you're a delivery service and you tell a customer, hey, your order is going to be there in 2 weeks. If it shows up the next day, that customer's thrilled, right? But one thing is if you want to continue to have a customer, you have to keep up with what their expectations are. Um, we're going to talk about many different examples, and you've seen them through the years. Radio Shack, Blockbuster. What's some other companies that didn't like listen to their customer and like, oh shit, they're done.
Well, Netflix did listen to their customer, and they're on the counter of what Blockbuster was, and from shipment to your house, video services to streaming, really springboarded them into
Oh
where they're at
shit.
today.
Somebody just said Circuit City. I haven't thought of Circuit City in
Yeah, oh
years.
yeah, I haven't seen them since the early 2000s. Absolutely,
What,
Best Buy. I mean,
wait,
Polaroid.
was there a big computer store called Fry's?
Yes,
Was that a
it's
big thing? Was
definitely
that like
yes.
nationwise Fry's?
Don't know nationwide, West Coast, yes, and they sell not just computers, they
Okay.
sell electronic components and other things too. For yes.
Cause I remember them like, like before I went into the service. And then like when I got out of the service, they just weren't there. And I was like, we're just gonna go to Fry's. And they're like, well, Fry's don't exist anymore. And I was like, oh man, I went to Afghanistan to miss Fry's. Oh well.
Yeah, they
Oh
used to
well.
have one in San Diego near Mission City, and then they had
Yeah.
another one here in Renton,
But
Washington back in the day.
But when we look at these different examples of industries, you can see where the mishaps were, right? No organization is perfect, but that's what continuous improvement's for, is so we can adhere to the customer's perspective. Go ahead, Tom. I just wanted to I don't
No,
know.
well, I think it's important because not just slide reading, but that interaction is very healthy because we needed to look at historical examples. Back in the day, let's talk about McDonald's, and I'll just throw, and
Yeah,
we won't get too far off on the tangent, Zach, but in the 80s, we always see these little stupid reels on Facebook or Instagram saying if you were a kid in the 80s, you got to play at the playground at McDonald's, and what a great time that was. Well, the playgrounds at McDonald's don't really exist anymore.
yeah,
But back when I was a kid, every McDonald's I ever went to, at least 8 out of 10 of them had playgrounds. And maybe it's because they were getting sued, safety
right.
issues, sure. But back then, it was just a different time, but society was different. So the moral of the story is adapting and overcoming societal needs and meeting the customer, meeting the voice of the customer. What is
Yeah.
society needing at that time? So
So, you talked about McDonald's, right? And let's go a step further and we talk about meeting the customer demand, right? There's a great movie. You guys should check it out. It's got Michael Keaton. It's talking about McDonald's and basically like I
never
don't know. Can I
started it.
guess like Ray Kroc like ripped them off, but he streamlined a lot of their operation, right? The founder, right?
Mhm.
Um, and it was more like, hey, how do we make this faster? And it was funny because McDonald's grew from these two. I can't remember if they were brothers or related or whatnot, right? But he like straight up stole their business, right? So, what's the next thing? We talk about customer, voice of the customer. What's the next one?
Customer.
Zach,
Yeah.
Zach,
Hey,
it's
oh,
Brian.
Dr. Nielsen. Hey, can we introduce him? Dr. Nielsen, what's up, man?
I love this. I love this.
Do you see how many people are here from all around the world, dude?
Saw that. I am so excited. I am so
Yeah,
excited. You're talking about McDonald's. Remember, I used to manage a McDonald's and I did a lot of
that's right.
QA, process improvement for them. And Ray Kroc was actually a um, salesman for shakes. And then he saw that he could
Right.
improve on what the brothers were doing and he took over and he made it huge. Awesome. Love it.
Yeah. Hey,
Absolutely.
Dr. Nielsen, can you I put your title on the slide, but can you tell the class what you do for a living and like how like what you do in the lean realm too?
Yeah, we need to look at what you put on my title, but that's okay.
I'm so
Uh,
sorry. I probably put some random bullshit on there. I'm so sorry.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Brian Nielsen, Dr. Brian Nielsen. My PhD, my terminal degree is in public health. I've got a bachelor's degree in entrepreneurial management. That one's a good one to say. A master's degree in education and a master's degree in public health. I retired from the Navy after 29 years as a hospital corpsman. I served as an independent duty corpsman on submarines. I've worked EMS and first responders since 1988. I've taught for a number of universities, colleges, and tech schools throughout the world, throughout the country. Worked both rural and urban EMS. And then my final duty station was as the chief of the boat on the USS Alabama, Roll Tide. So as the chief of the boat, there's a lot there that goes into QA/QI, especially when we're dealing with coming out of the yards. I took 2 submarines out of the yards, took the Alabama through 3 different overhaul periods and a number of underways and some deterrent patrols. But before that, I owned my own restaurant. I dropped out of college, started working in McDonald's. Then I went to Kentucky Fried Chicken. Then I went and bought my own restaurant. So when we talk about Lean and Six Sigma, I can give you a number of different backgrounds. I also, during college, there were 3 of us that had our own business, and we helped businesses decrease the amount of injury. So we did a lot of, before it was Lean and Six Sigma, it was TQM, TQL. Deming taught a lot of that. And I've done work with the Ford Motor Company. I've done work, like I said, with McDonald's, with Burger King, with 3 different colleges in their campus dining facility, trying to figure out how we could make them more lean and more productive. So I've got a good amount of background, and I've done a lot of Six Sigma projects in the hospital setting. So things like reducing pharmacy errors, reducing needle sticks, reducing wait times in different places. So, and right now, I am the Plans, Training, and Exercise Officer for the Kitsap County Department of Emergency Management. So I get to look and try to make our plans and our processes better. So I use Lean and Six Sigma every time we do a exercise or I plan for something. So a little bit about
Okay.
me.
Okay. So I definitely put like lean emergency management as your job title. So like I was kind of there. Like I'm not lying. It's kind of I was kind of there. So
Yeah.
Dr. Nielsen is gonna
Somebody said,
join us. Um
somebody said, that just means he's old. Not a problem. Take that. I'll take that.
that's a W in my book. So
Yeah.
so there he's gonna join us throughout the week. I just wanted him to kind of come in and say hi to everybody, give a little introduction to him. So a lot of these good instructors they come on and they help me with this, and everybody here is a volunteer trying to help you guys get a career. So my hat's off to all these people, and Tom, thank you so much for letting us just jump into your session and
Yeah.
introduce Dr. Nielsen. So. Tom, I'll let you kick things off again.
Well, and I think what's healthy, Zach, is having these, these interjections because it helps with kind of the flow of the class. And, when there's value added, there's never value subtracted. So, Dr. Nielsen, thank you for also jumping into, I mean, quite a resume. Wow. I mean, taking out 2 submarines, that's pretty, and everything else you've done, of course, starting in the restaurant business. And then you went back to college after during the service, after the service, and getting a PhD. Outstanding.
I
So,
actually spent, of my 29 years in the service, I spent 20 years on submarines.
Oh,
So, 17 years as a corpsman and 3 years as the chief of the boat.
the Cobb.
Yep.
And if you ever want to see submarine life, watch The Hunt for Red October. I would say that's not the best depiction, but certain aspects of it were very true, right? Would you say there, Dr. Nielsen?
Steel ships
Steel
or
ships.
Das Boot. Das Boot is actually one of the best ones there is out there.
all
There are a
right.
few other ones.
All
Yeah.
right, guys. So,
All right, we're
uh,
gonna.
yeah,
Yeah.
let's kick it back off. Thank you guys. Where was I going with that? Yeah, let's kick things off. Oh, by the way, you would never catch me on a sub. That ain't happening, boys.
Neither me. I'm good. I like my surface fleet. Okay, so we're gonna transition here to measurement. So measurement is the second part in the phase of DMAIC, and normally the measurement phase is created during the define phase to gather data and track metrics. So characteristics of the actual measurement phase going into the granular detailer is gathering the data to understand the current performance of the process mapping, creating detail maps of the process to identify potential areas for improvement, baseline performance, establishing metrics and benchmarks to measure current process capability, and then statistical analysis using statistical tools to analyze data and identify variation within the process. So Zach had asked me to share, I'm just going to go off on a little springboard here for a second, and where am I using, Lean Six Sigma in my current role? And one thing we're doing actually, because we actually work off of project management with Bonneville Power, and so within Bonneville Power, we're measuring transmission lines across Idaho, Oregon, and Washington, and we're making sure that we can get project management into these different towers and these different poles for replacement and increasing power consumption because we have AI power banks and AI data centers going in all throughout the region. So we're always doing project improvements. And so with the realty side of it, we're always having to measure and see where our realty specialists can do the work for doing land easements, right-of-way access, road access, etc. And we have 2 different categories within project management. We have capital or portfolio work, which is driven by the customer, driven by the ratepayer for the public utilities, and then you have like the little meager stuff like we just need to get a permit for BNSF for this or that. So it's capital versus non-capital. Well, right now we're reducing a lot of waste within capital because we're measuring now on a 40-hour work week the availability of time for realty specialists to do capital work versus the non-capital work. And so we're going through a whole measurement phase right now using Power BI, using different Excel tools to see where our biggest reductions we can make in wasted time. So our realty specialists are more proficient. And so when they're doing their time cards, it shows where they're spending their time best so we can justify hiring more people or streamlining certain areas to be better. So Zach, that's my plug. That's one of the biggest things we're doing right now and applying a lot of these lean principles into that process for demanding capacity.
Okay, cool. I like it. So here's the thing too, folks. When we look at faithless, I'm gonna get right back to you real fast. Tom, take a note. What's the difference between efficiency versus utilization? She's asking you that, but uh think that in your head while I'm gonna go off on a little thing talking about the demand system. The defined phase, you really want to find what? The problem. Well, how do you find the problem? Do you just look at the surface level problems? No. You have to quantify the behavior of that problem, right? Because here's the thing, everybody likes to complain about their job, right? But when we take those complaints and we put them on paper, and whether it's qualitative or quantitative data, right? Qualitative data would be descriptive, quantitative data would be, numerical in nature. And when we look at that data and we say, okay, the past is in the past, we got to move forward. So many times in projects, have you guys ever heard of like the term analysis paralysis? You guys ever heard of that? Like people will spend like a lot of times in my projects, I'm supposed to be an advisor, right? I'm not trying to come in and do the work for them. I'm watching the continuous improvement projects. That's kind of where I go into it. But a lot of times, people start working on their projects and they'll go into shit that they don't need to go into, right? And what I mean by that, and I try to be real with this. Like people will go so deep into an analysis and you're like, dude, what was the problem again? Right? You guys have seen that, right?
Yep.
Well, how do we fix that? That's your job as green belts, and more along as black belts in nature, right? Because you're going to be managing those projects and leading multiple level projects. Scope and mission creeps. I'm exactly right. Those things are going to come in our way oftentimes. And so what we want to do is we want to streamline the process. We want to look into how do we fix 10% of our issues, right? Maybe it's more, but it's like when you throw a football down the field, or you're playing football, is it the Hail Mary pass that gets the football down the field the fastest, or is it those small incremental plays? Those small incremental plays oftentimes produce far better results. And that's the thing with continuous improvement. My daddy said this phrase, and maybe you guys can help me with it. He said, don't start something unless you can what?
Finish it.
So, uh, now he's probably a horrible example because he's been married like 8 times. But in all actuality, when we look at continuous improvement from that mindset, we want to start at one level and continuously grow. And hopefully my father's in a loving relationship after eight of those damn things. But
Zach,
what?
I love this. With that scope creep and everything you're talking about, I've actually had projects where the team got so in the weeds that we made one project. We developed 6 other projects just from the stuff they were pulling out of the weeds, but we had to get those away from the main project to keep the main thing that main thing. Otherwise, you don't have a path you're going towards.
Yeah. Yeah. And you have to put the rubber on the road or you're not going to get to your destination. So we oftentimes, and where I'm going with this is when we're looking at what the problem is, we have to quantify that problem. So in the domain system, as you're doing the defined phase, you may also be establishing the metric phase in itself. Maybe you don't have all the information, but if we're looking at waste in an organization and I'm a business owner, I want to know where I'm pissing my money away. Maybe that's not the most politically correct term, but I mean, I don't try to be scientific with this. I want you to be able to say this stuff to your team and them being able to regurgitate it. The frontline workers, in industries, what do you think their education level is? Oftentimes it's like a 10th grade education level, reading, standardized writing, things like that. And so we try to streamline it through the domain system. And the measurement system, it quantifies it and it qualifies why we are doing a continuous improvement project.
Accurate,
So
Zach.
we can go to the analyze phase.
So we're going to continue on. So remember Sally? Broken bases are causing a high number of issues, customer loss. So Sally measures her problem. And right now she's talking about 10 different bases. And out of those 10, 7 are going to market, they're doing good, and 3 of them are breaking. So out of her resource, 7 out of 10 are good, but she still has a 30% defect rate, which is important as we go through the slide here and how she's measuring her problem. So with a 70 to 30, do we think that she could actually go and do better? Absolutely. And let's go ahead and explore that. So do the math, right? Defect yield. And we did that. So yield is 7 out of 10 are great and they're doing good, but defect is 3 out of 10, which is, again, yes, Kelvin agreed, much too high. So the defect rate times 100, 7 out of 10 times 100%, 70%, where 3 times 3 times 100 is 30%. So 3 times. So 70, 30. So that is a really high rate. So defect rate 30% is essentially what the graphic is showing. You're flushing money right down the toilet. And as Zach has stated, the company is about saving money and returning on investment, not losing money and just making it a routine problem. So that way it gets overlooked and ignored. So that's actually a good question, Zach, or for anybody to answer, use the chat, or Zach, if you want to come off, put video on. Have you ever seen a company that was comfortable with just flushing away money because they didn't want to try and attack the problem because they thought it was too complicated? So they were just good with the status quo. Or Brian, Dr. Nielsen, have you ever seen that before?
I actually just saw this happen today.
Oh.
Ford Motor Company and GM, and I believe it's Mazda, all have cut their high-end EV vehicle productions, and they are Toyota and Chevrolet. They are turning away from the high-end EVs because they were losing so much money, but they're willing to flush down. It turned out to be like $200 billion in the moving away from those. So they're flushing money to try to make money in the future. Not exactly like this, but it's hard to see a company say, yeah, I'm okay with a 30% loss right off the top, and I'm gonna just take that as a known loss. Even the DoD, I'm sorry, but even the DoD doesn't. Maybe the CIA does, but I mean, in submarines, we're looking at 0.01% defect or less.
Right. No, that's a very good point. And yeah, and back to the stakeholders and to those that are the shareholders, I don't know how their comfortability is going to be like that over the long term, but in the short term, it's interesting to hear that. And I'm glad that I asked that question. Thank you, Dr. Nielsen, and to everybody else contributing. So do the math. This is the best quality yield, 70%. Probably not. So our goal is the best quality management practices. So now what? We measure the problem and the impact of it. We will dive into the analyze phase. So in the analyze phase, what we want to do is we want to look at the identifying the root cause of the problem. Common causes, market, human, we've seen that graphic, root cause analysis, cause and effect analysis. So employing techniques like the 5 whys or the fishbone diagram are very common to identify the root cause problem. So as we know, the 5 whys, the who, what, where, when, why. And the fishbone diagram, can someone put in the chat what they believe to be or have utilized the fishbone diagram, what that is? Cause and effect, yep. Man, method, machine, cause and effect variables, root cause, yep. So then, all right, we're going to move forward with the data analysis tools, utilizing tools such as regression analysis, hypothesis testing, and Pareto charts. 5 whys, yes, Ishikawa. Identify root cause. Gap analysis, comparing current performance to desired performance levels of standards. And then identification of improvement areas, pinpointing specific areas where changes will have the most impact. Okay. So the vendor supplier issue. Sally did determine what her root cause of the problem was. She was stating at this point it's the vendor and supplier issue. So working to understand the problem. Collaborating instead of finger pointing is key. Sometimes the answer isn't to assign blame, but it is to work together. Problems aren't always what they seem. About 25 feet from the loading bay is a bump that is too high. So if the truck's going over the bump and it's too high, it's obviously going to be causing breakage within inside the truck over the speed bump. So working together, they uncovered the real problem was at the loading bay. So in the improvement phase, so the objective here is implementing solutions to eliminate the root cause. In this particular area, as we're doing the improvement phase, we're solution development, brainstorming, and selecting solutions to address the root cause. Design of experiments or DOE is testing potential solutions to see their effects on the process. Implementation of the plan is developing a detailed plan for implementing the chosen solutions, and then pilot studies, running a small scale test to validate the effectiveness of the solutions. So under construction, hold please. Moving that speed bump. So this improved the process. Vases were quality improved because of the speed bump and not breaking in the truck. Customers were happier, and sales, of course, by proxy improved. But wait, how is she going to sustain her changes? In the control phase is our maintaining the improvements and ensuring consistent performance. So in these characteristics is process monitoring, establishing a new process metrics and monitoring them to ensure sustained improvements were made. Standardization, documenting new processes and ensuring they are consistently applied. Response plan is creating plans to address any future process variation or lapses. And then, of course, continuous improvement, regularly reviewing process performance and seeking opportunities for further enhancements. So documentation is key to sustaining the improvement. SOPs, I mean, if you've been in the military long enough or in private industry or particularly manufacturing, SOPs really drive a lot. And of course, SOPs, while they are the gold standard, they always can be showing room for improvement and always be ready for improvement too, as technology changes, as things evolve and processes change as well. So that's a unique example of how Lean Six Sigma project and collaboration can work. So Lean Six Sigma revolves around two things. It revolves around central tendency and standard deviation. So central tendency is how does your data cluster around the mean and the central limit theorem? And then standard deviation is how far apart or spread out is your data. Enrico, could poor packaging also be a problem after conducting the root cause? It could be. So, I mean, there's other factors that always get that defect rate down to zero. So there's always ways to look at things a little differently. The central limit theorem states that as data is collected, it tends to center primarily around the mean. So around 68% of your data is close to the average or the X bar, which represents our target point right here. Sigma is a statistical term that represents the standard deviation of a set of data. So sigma, your average of your set in the middle. So the goal in Lean Six Sigma, 98% William Lee within 2 standard deviations, absolutely. Reduce waste by Lean Six Sigma eliminates non-essential processes and activities to minimize costs and increase profitability. Improve process. Lean Six Sigma streamlines operations to optimize resource utilization and increase productivity. And then, of course, the quality is Lean Six Sigma focuses on continuous improvement to meet and exceed customer expectations for product and service quality. So as we go back in through and look at DMAIC, define, measure, analyze, improve, and control, it's identifying the problem, set the objectives, and then outline the scope of the improvement project. Excuse me. Define and identify the problem, set objectives, outline the scope of the improvement project, and then in the measure phase, collect data to establish a baseline and understand the current performance of the process. Analyze, examine the data to identify the root causes of the problem and in turn determine areas of improvement. Improve, develop, and implement solutions to address the root causes and enhance process performance. And then within control is monitor the improved process to ensure that gains are sustained and establish controls to prevent regression. So here we're at our case study, Toys R Us. So before we get into our case study, I want to ask how do we think that Toys R Us went out of business? What was one of the things that drove them away, just like Sears? Amazon, yep, online tech, online sales, unable e-commerce, competition, online shopping, technologies, absolutely. The inability to digitize themselves and be an online platform. Okay. Was what led to a lot of their downfall. And it's really kind of sad because I think a lot of us grew up as Toys R Us kids, and just like KB Toys and just like other toys that were dedicated stores to children have went a lot of the way of the dodo, and they've went online to like Amazon and other, yeah, it's cry emoji, absolutely. I was really sad when I took my 3-year-old daughter at the time at Virginia Beach when they were closing down Toys R Us in 2018. We went in there and we bought what we could. We got some memorabilia, but then they closed the store down shortly thereafterwards. So let's getting into this case study. Identify how Toys R Us did not use VOC, so voice of the customer. With not analyzing the voice of the customer, of course, Amazon took over the market. And so when Toys R Us, they rested on their laurels, they didn't want to improve certain areas of where their customer base was going, which was to online and not traveling to go shopping anymore and just using the internet and delivery such as Amazon. They weren't migrating themselves in the same capacity as stated. And so that's what led to a lot of their demise and falls. And so when we look at critical thinking, just kind of shaping the problem and shaping where the voice of the customer failed with Toys R Us is how might have Toys R Us been misinterpreted or overlooked key signals from the voice of the customer that indicated a shift in consumer preferences towards online shopping and convenience? Well, one thing is maybe people don't want to spend the gas and the money to go to a shopping center when they can easily order it online from the convenience of their home. That's one thing. Another is, some people really stack their weekends to get stuff done around the house, whether it's blowing the lawn, doing house projects, and they don't want to spend 2 hours driving somewhere, is walking through a store and then leaving again when they can actually order it maybe Monday through Friday. And so those kind of behaviors and those kind of different societal parameters is what led to them not getting the voice of the customer correct and not making their actual shifts that they should have made. So, which has led, to where they're at now. I have heard that Toys R Us is, someone put in chat that they're making kind of a silent comeback. They are, but I don't think they'll ever beat where they're at before. So, Blockbuster case study. So, before we get into this, this is kind of a personal one for me. Where is the last Blockbuster in the country right now? Oregon. What part of Oregon? Absolutely. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I went there once back in 2016. It was really super awesome. But as we know, back in the day, it was failure to adapt. Netflix, I alluded to this earlier when we were talking with Zach about how Netflix cornered the market with doing the mail-in DVDs that turn into a streaming service that turn into an extension of like Roku and smart TVs. And yes, it is the last in the world. And Blockbuster, Hollywood Video, when I grew up in Binghamton, New York, it was Video King. So all these video rental stores, and who remembers back on a Friday night when you went for the weekend, you went Redbox, yep. You went to the video store. It's like, we don't want to go to the movie theater. We're not traveling out of town. We just want to go hang out and BS at home on a Friday night. And so for us, being from Windsor, New York, we went to Binghamton to Video King. We selected our three movies, Terminator 2, Aliens, you name it, Total Recall, whatever. And then we'd get the popcorn and we'd go ahead and go home. Now there was late fees if you're running them late, sure. But I also back then was in Super Nintendo. So to me, it was a nostalgia thing getting to the point. When these places started to close, I was very, sad. But what happened was with the voice of the customer for Blockbuster Video, they ran an assumption that DVDs were going to be around forever. They ran assumptions that people are going to go on outings still to a Friday night and go get these videos for the weekend, and that streaming services would be something way into the future. And so, not realizing the trends and where they were going with data analysis and putting together the problem and the voice of the customer to the project charter, they really lost out on a gold mine. And that's why they're down to one store today. So, forwarding on with this slide, so that's why they didn't last. And that's why it's important. But this is going to be discussed later on this week. So, but just to kind of put the plant there in the seed. Lesson one, Lean Six Sigma overview is DMAIC is the framework for success with Sally's Flower Shop, application Lean versus Six Sigma, and the voice of the customer. Yes, that one store does make money, but that is based upon mostly, Ryan, like nostalgia versus where it's at with productivity for customers. It's more, I think, just nostalgia and people want to feel good going there. Okay, Zach, it looks like we're at the top of the hour. Instead of an hour and a half, we could take a break now if we want to. Maybe we take a 10, come back. Hey, Zach, you there?
Hey,
Okay.
Tom.
Yeah.
Hey, Tom. Doesn't that Blockbuster also work as a bed or as a Airbnb or a bed and breakfast also?
Yes. Yes. So they
You
got
can
quite a
go
unique
there.
flavor to it. But
Yeah, you
again,
can.
if someone asks if it's a profitable thing, for the nostalgia of it, where people want to go, to me, it's a perfect place to go take a weekend trip to. All right, I'm going to put
Yeah.
everybody on a 10-minute break. Right now, it's 8:55 p.m. your time, 5:55 mine. Let's come back at 6:05 my time, 9:05 your time. Thank you. 7 seconds. So how's everyone enjoying the class so far? You can just drop in the chat. Pretty good. Yeah. See anything?
Oh, I think you're doing a really good job, Tom. I just want to let you know.
Thank you, Zach. I appreciate that.
No problem, bud.
I actually have to do a call out. There's a fellow senior chief that we work together with, a Mesron unit that's in the class right now. I won't state their name, but they just messaged me on Messenger for Facebook and was really happy to see that they're getting a lot of the class and they're enjoying it as well. So thank you. Okay, we're ready to go. Let's get this kickback off. So, right, give it a second. Might be a little bit of a delay there while it's going to full screen. All right, I don't know why this is being funky. I'm gonna stop sharing, getting this back to full screen, then I'll go ahead and reshare. So just bear with me for a second. There we go. Okay. Okay, go ahead and reshare. So, okay. So I'm glad everyone's enjoying the class so far. I know it's really a lot to take in. There's a lot to digest, but again, we want to make this as beneficial to everyone because it's a lot to ask of folks after they worked a long day. Like, I guess got off of about a 9 hour shift at work and come and teach, or if you're here to be a student or to be a peer or moderator, it takes a lot. So we want to make sure this is as valuable as we can make it. So roles and responsibilities. Hey, actually, Zach, this is a kind of a good pause point. We're getting a lot of questions about slides being available at the end. Can we get a copy of the slides? I know the recordings are available, but do you want to just speak to that now so we can put the
Yeah,
nail in the coffin for that?
yeah, I'll go ahead. I'll go ahead and speak to it. So you have the presentation, you have parts of the presentation in your notes, right? I covered that. You don't have the slides itself. But do you have the key points throughout the day that we'll be going into? And you have the data that we'll be going into for calculations. And then you also have the videos to coincide to it. So if you wanted to go back and refresh yourself on the course, you're more than welcome to. But to directly answer the question, I believe it's also in the FAQ, which I know I didn't give you enough time to read, but I think it states in there that we do not give the direct PowerPoints, right? There are points in the class where I'll pause and I'll say, hey, here are the PowerPoints for this section, but that won't be for a couple days. And I'll let you guys know where to go. So, thank you.
Thank you, Zach. Appreciate that. I'm going to ask you a question about that later, Zach, because I had something kind of just popped in. But when we go on our next break, I'll text you that question I have.
No
So,
problem, bud.
anyways, moving forward, roles and responsibilities. So, roles and responsibilities. So, as you can tell, Zach's kind of a Star Wars nerd like I am in a galaxy far, far away. We talked about fundamental understandings of lean principles and to report significant process error to Greenbelt, Black Belt. That's kind of their area. So with the white belt, it's fundamentals, and then significant process error goes into the green belt, black belt. So your yellow belt, so it's just kind of talking about the different levels and what they're where they're at as far as their role and responsibility. So obviously there's the droids, it's very basic, elemental, foundational. Stormtroopers, you're kind of elevating your leadership a bit, your basic vocabulary of Lean Six Sigma, basic process tool knowledge such as DMAIC. Green belt, you're really into the weeds. You're managing Lean Six Sigma projects. You're reporting problems to the black belt, all those hurdles and barriers that you need the black belt to remove. You're reporting that up. Yeah, so essentially you're here in this case Obi-Wan Kenobi, a Jedi, a master, and maybe get the seat at the console. And then of course black belt, you're like this Stewie from Family Guy looking Darth Vader here. But all seriousness, your advanced leadership, Six Sigma methodology. At this point, by the time you're a black belt, you're able to teach, mentor, coach, and lead Lean Six Sigma projects. So And then master black belt goes beyond that. So one thing I just want to say, none of us are I mean, Zach's an expert, Dr. Nielsen's an expert. I've been working with this for a while myself, but I will say those little green log books that I was talking to you earlier about. So these right here are really good to get, the green log jog books, and I put the post in the chat already, because you're not going to remember everything. And it's good just for quick reference. Also, AI could probably answer some questions if you have general questions about certain processes within Lean Six Sigma. But just remember, you're not going to be an expert. That's the point that I want to make from attending this class this week. You're just getting the doors open, and you're going to refine your skills as you're getting put into these projects. Yes, Zach, am
Yeah.
I
Let me chime in a little bit, Tom. Go back to Obi-Wan real fast.
going to work?
So when we talk about green belts, right? And one of the reasons that I have Obi-Wan there is, if you've watched or been around, and Obi-Wan led a small project team and he kind of coached Luke on the Endeavor or whatever, right? And he was there at the beginning, right? And he kind of stayed with Luke throughout, the trilogy. Well, real life, green belts are managing smaller projects. And like, here's the thing. You've got to be able to manage this project and also do your own responsibilities. Because that's what's really good and neat about if you're really good at your job. Guess what the companies do is they put more responsibilities on you. So you're multitasking. You want to be able to enable and empower your yellow belts and white belts, right? And they're going to be coming to you, and you're really kind of there to help guide them on basic problem solving, basic data collection. Oh, I need to get a time study at this assembly line. Um, let's go over to Darth Vader real fast, right? We talk about Darth Vader, and I mean, he's over here, he's managing multiple projects, right? He's running that Death Star, working for the man, Senator Palpatine, or Emperor Palpatine, whatever you want to look at him. All right. He's managing these events and multiple projects going on at once, right? And I'm speaking more to the black belts in here. Leading is one of the hardest things, right? Because there's really, I mean, yeah, there's frameworks that we can utilize, but oftentimes leading takes what? Being able to communicate and guide people, right? How many of you guys have to deal with bullshit on your job that like you really shouldn't have to deal with on a working professional level? Like just so much like everybody's like, yeah, we know what you're talking about, Zach, right? When we look at projects, oftentimes you're managing so many different people. In the military, we deal with a lot of like babysitting. We do, right? And I don't mean that as like a bad thing, right? You have young people that are basically high school coming up, and you have to literally, train them to be young men and women. In the industry, it's no different, right? You're training project teams, and oftentimes you're teaching them Lean Six Sigma projects or tools as you're coaching. Especially when we get into the define phase, and I mean the not define phase, but when you start working with project teams, your whiteboard is your biggest friend. You notice that I have a lot of like visualizations in these slides, right? I think when you're able to understand concepts at a fundamental level, instead of explaining like, hey, it's at this point, and here's the research, and this is what so and so in this research, like nobody cares like that. They want to know how can you save an organization money? We talk straight up about Sally's Flower Shop, right? She's got all these costs going on, and you have to manage that. I've worked with Lean Six Sigma projects as a black belt, as a master black belt in small mom and pop shops to Fortune 500 companies. Those smaller shops, they struggle, especially in this economy, right? Your customer's not guaranteed. Companies like Amazon, Walmart, these bigger companies that I've worked with, their customers are guaranteed. Uh, the way that is because they become a standardized practice that you can rely on. And that's what organizations and processes should be. They should be processes and not just depending on people. People help guide it, but your process should be a science. And, as you start involving and start understanding more the Lean Six Sigma methodology, especially as we dive more into each phase of it, you start to realize how complex projects are, but how simple it is to truly just teach. That's what you are. You're a coach. You're a small, one of the reasons the military is so successful is we focus so much on what? Small unit leadership, right? Same thing here, empowering your workforce to make decisions to enable continuous improvement in organization. Can you go to the next one real fast, Tom? I want to talk
Yeah.
about the master black belt, right?
Leader versus manager, know the difference. Actually, Zach, if I can pause it just for a second.
Yeah.
In the chat, let's talk about what is a leader versus what's a manager. And we're going to only take about a minute or two on this, but please just dump it in the chat and I'll read out a few of the responses. And I think this is very important because people have written dissertations about this. And then I can give my 2 cents, but I'd love to hear what. So, leader leads, yes. Okay. Lead people, manage processes. A leader leads through example. Leader moves through inspiration versus implementation, strength versus strategy versus implementation, leader influences coaches. Yes. Leaders help you to get there, managers manage the task. Okay. So there's a great book that Zach has written called Leadership Isn't Shit, and you can find it on Amazon. And Zach, I'm just going to put a plug in for you. I love that book. There's so much good information in there. But if you look it up, and tonight at some point before we cut out, I'll go ahead and drop that link in there. But there's a lot of difference between leadership and managing it. And Zach, you want to go ahead and put a plug for that?
Yeah. Yeah, I'll talk about, books and stuff later, Tom, but
Sure.
one of the things that I do when I write these lectures is I talk a lot about these industries we're working with, right? Tom, can you restart your slide? Just you got to turn off the annotation, but you can't do that in class. So exit out real fast
Yep.
and start it back up.
For a
Because I want to
second.
dive a little bit more into the roles of it, right? You see a lot of organizations really start to look at, who's a manager, who's a leader, right? Your managers, you still need managers. Like I used to, when I was younger, used to be like, well, I want to be a leader and, I don't want to just manage processes. I want to lead. Well, if you want to lead, you have to have that stability. And who's that stability? Your managers, right?
And so it's important, leader, you got to understand leading, getting the horse to drink the water. It's important, but you got to understand
What,
managing the
what did you just say?
processes.
Did you just say the horse?
No, I said, leaders, leading the horse to drink the water.
Oh,
You try
okay,
to lead
okay.
all day
Yeah.
long and the horse, but you can't force him to drink. You have to be inspirational in order for that next step for your subordinates, your peers, your direct reports to want to be inspired by your
Oh, yeah,
leadership
I
and
think so
perform
too.
duties and to be exemptional in what they're doing. As a manager, they just sit in the back office all day looking at a computer screen 8 hours a day and they don't really give a damn. But if you're not doing your job, they're going to be there to micromanage you with arms folded and like, what the hell's going on? To me, as a deck plate leader, as I learned in the Navy, you have to be out there engaging sailors, understanding what's going on, have some intrusive leadership. But knowing the difference is very important because manager, yeah, there is a difference. But like I
Yeah,
said, Zach, we'll get into that a little bit later.
yeah,
But it's very important to know that. And I think through the
yeah,
comment section, we've definitely got a lot of great answers.
yeah.
So
Ashley, I saw a thing from Ashley, and she said, one thing. And Tom, I want you to be pulling up your slides while I'm talking here.
yeah,
Um, when we talk about, she said leaders inspire, right? I, for a long time it took me to understand what a leader is, right? And a lot of you, I don't think it's far-fetched to say you're still learning as a leader. No one can say like the people that are like, "Oh, I'm a most perfect leader." Like, no, you're not, man. Like, there's so many other things you don't know that you can know. And I think being a leader is about learning new things and learning and being humble in your approach and leading from a vulnerability standpoint. right? Leaders, they inspire. And I tell myself this, and I tell my team, I'm not the best leader in the world. I have all this knowledge and all this experience, but the best way I know how to lead is the gifts I was given, and that's teaching, right? And it's taken me a while to figure out that there's different types of leader, and I'm not talking about like authoritarian, like anything like that. I'm talking about just there's different approaches to leadership, and that's one of the things that you learn in Lean Six Sigma, and you start not just in Lean Six Sigma itself, but as you start to get more exposure to different projects, that's where you start to realize, okay, well, where do I want to go career-wise? Do I want to be a leader? Do I want to be executive? Do I want to just manage things? Right? Because concepts of success are different to people, right? I could ask you, what's your concept of success? And it would be completely different than someone else. And they might be aligned. But here's the thing, it gives us the ability to see things from different perspectives. Leading
Is
is all about being innovation. Let's go to the next slide, Tom, because I want to talk about I want to move us forward.
that, Zach?
Hey, yeah,
A
Dr.
lot of
Nielsen.
a lot of times leaders aren't even those people that think of themselves as leaders. They just have that ability, that innate ability to have people want to follow them and
Wow.
want to do what they want them to do. And those are probably the best leaders because they have that ability to get people to care for what they want.
Uh,
And
uh,
when you can put one person in an actual leadership role, you've got it.
yeah. We talk about being a master black belt, right? Somebody said, well, what about master black belt? Eh, Every belt is a different change agent level, right? A master black belt, you become more versatile in going into organizations and looking at policies. And I like to kind of say that you're changing the culture of the organization while you're looking at their processes, while you're analyzing their behavior. Wednesday, we're going to talk about a field that aligns very similarly to a master black belt. And like people are going to be in this field, be like, no, you're not. They're not the same thing, but they're closely related. But it's something called an industrial psychologist, right? And IO psychology studies the effects of people and how to be more efficient in an organization by, adhering to change of what the people need to be more efficient. And so, as a master black belt, we become experienced in the methodologies, right? Like, the methodologies are what they are. There's added things throughout the years and technology, you get better at it. You become a change agent because you realize that it's okay to look at an organization and be like, look, you're jacked up, but nobody's perfect. But let me show you some organizations that I've worked with or that I've seen experience this best practice. And, we all use benchmarking, but Lean Six Sigma Master Black Belts, I've bounced around in so many industries that it's like, okay, we might have used this process in a hospital example, but we're using the same process or the same tool of Lean Six Sigma in a manufacturing example. And, you become very interchangeable with that. And, this is a pretty high in demand level. On Saturday and Sunday, we're going to go over the lecture materials for this. And we're going to talk about advanced leadership concepts and leading teams. And Dr. LaFrance is going to kind of guide us along there on that aspect. But basically, if you were looking at the levels of it, Tom, can you go to the next slide?
Yep.
Keep going.
So, yep. We're gonna load all these up from white belt to black belt.
Yeah, there you go.
There you go.
Right. So we look at these and we say the roles of it, right? Yellow belts and white belts are very interchangeable in the industry. Yellow belt and white belt is typically like an 8 to 12 hour class. It's really like it's very basic, rudimentary. You're really not diving into very advanced statistical concepts at all. Green belts, you're more looking at the statistical behavior. You're going to look at basic statistical analysis, some advanced concepts, right? I'll talk about ANOVA analysis, t-test with Dr. Nielsen. But we're going to show you how we use these statistics at this level to guide teams. And that's what green belts are pretty much coaches. Black belts, we look at the supervisory role. A lot of organizations right now, they're asking for black belts in the industry. That's just, they want to, yeah, they want to see that you have that advanced level of coaching project teams. And black belts will go into more of how do you use statistics in multiple frameworks and design of experiments on these different levels. We'll talk more of that as we go through, but black belts, that's a supervisory role. Our master black belts and up, you got champions as well. And champions, they pretty much champion projects and allocate resources. That's what a champion does is understanding how to allocate resources to Lean Six Sigma projects. But they fit somewhere in between the black belt and master black belt. And master black belt, that's what I am. I mean, I'm technically a master black belt facilitator. Uh, that's what my title would be, I guess. But you're changing culture. You don't necessarily have to become a trainer to become a master black belt. But your master black belt is looking at change at that executive level in the organization. Master black belts pay wise, most master black belts that I know that practice and are practitioners of this are typically around $200,000 as a master black belt. Black belts around 100, green belts around 70 and less, yellow belts around like 40. I mean, that's like ballpark range, but that's what you're gonna see all around the globe. And go to the next slide, Tom.
Yep. Excuse me. Let me go back. So, yep. Title does
So
not make you a leader.
yeah, and when we're looking at this, I mean, these different belt levels, all they are is, different jobs and organizations have a preference for belt level they would want at a certain job. I've seen it in a lot of organizations, like if they want a middle manager, they're gonna want, at least somebody with at least a green belt level to be a manager in an organization. Um, but that doesn't make you, fluent in it. What makes you fluent in it is practicing these skills on a daily basis. So keep going.
And also identifying where your gaps of knowledge are and where your blind spots are,
Absolutely.
learning from
Absolutely.
those. So case study. So let's see what that case study is.
Which one's this one?
So
Yeah.
this is how would you save Toys R Us?
Yeah, you keep you can do you want to do the case study, Tom, or you want me to?
You can go ahead and jump into it. I've been teaching for a bit, so I'll go ahead and stop
Yeah.
sharing.
Yeah, okay. Let me pull this up real fast. I was just gonna go off of you, but what slide are you on? What deck? The roles and
So,
responsibilities, right?
yep.
Tom, pull it up real fast. I had to restart Canva.
Okay. Yeah, let me just go ahead and escape out of here. It's a little slow.
Yeah,
So,
give me just one second.
projects. Yeah.
I don't know why it's so slow tonight. It's probably because of the number of people we have.
Yes. And for everyone that's on the call that's still with us, thank you for being patient.
Yeah,
Hosting these
absolutely.
platforms that can have its technological challenges, but the uniqueness and just the rarity to see everyone coming across the world is pretty awesome. I
I
share
got
Zach's sentiment on that.
Yeah, I got it, Tom. I'm gonna take over for just a
Yep.
bit.
Okay.
So we talk about Toys R Us, right? Toys R Us, we saw a steady decline, and if we look back in time, we have the crystal ball, right? We can look back because it's already happened. we can see where the issues were in the decline in the organization. Now, did Toys R Us have the best leadership? I don't know. I think they were given an impossible task when new leadership took over, but they were already in a downhill climb and they eventually went out of business. And, they're slowly starting to pop up at little retail stores. I saw them in the mall during Christmas shopping and during my last minute Christmas shopping. But we saw that decline, and you can see it with the advances in the internet and how we evolved through the early 2000s to 2017. You saw how their kind of decline started to go down. What I want to do is I want to give you, I don't know if this is going to work the right way that I want it to, but I'm going to try to do, Tom, do you think we should try to risk it and do some breakout rooms to do some networking
Yeah, I
and do
think so.
a breakout room activity with them?
Yeah, I think so. I think that would work. We'll have to have the moderators follow them. So out of 861 how many breakout rooms can you do on this
All right,
platform at
I can
subscription
do,
level?
hold on, let me see. Okay, I got a breakout room right here. Here, I'm gonna do it this way.
Yeah.
I want to see if this works because this is a test. So I'm gonna automatically assign it. And what I want you guys to do is I want you to take some time and I want you to talk about your roadmap to recovery. Define what the problem is in your group, right? It's really gonna be, you're gonna get in your group, meet your little population network. But I want you to talk about what would have been some strengths or tools that you might have used to recover Toys R Us. So what's your pitch? And I'm really sorry if you get people in your room that don't participate, but they should be small little rooms. I'm gonna put you guys in there for about 15 minutes, and we will come right back and go back into the lecture. But with Toys R Us, what would be your road to recovery? So I want you to spend 15 minutes as a team, and I want you to build your strategy and have a good time. And please be respectful to people.
Hey, Zach, I think this is going to be really good. Let's see here.
I hope so. I hope so. Because I've never had this many people in a class and try to do a Zoom room.
Well, if they do that, when you come back, how do you just want to say like, because I mean, you have 80 different rooms, so do you want to just
It's
say
it
what are some general ideas, like put it in the chat, just kind of so that way you
Yeah,
keep the flow
yeah. I
going?
just want to give them time to engage with people.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. Yeah.
And if you haven't, if you're not in a breakout room and you're still in the main session, let's go ahead and talk about it as a team. Somebody just kind of talk about what would be your strategy, and we'll just kind of go from there. So if you're still in the class or want to participate and you're not in a breakout room, oh shit.
What would your pitch be? Building your strategy pitch. So we know where Toys R Us failed. Can Zach, do we have the ability to let people come off mute? Let's see.
Yes, we can. It just got
Outstanding.
fixed.
Oh, there you go.
Outstanding.
Yeah, my
Okay.
bad.
Good.
Nice.
My bad. I don't want to like unmute it with like 1,000 people in here because like
That
I
would
have people
probably drive
yelling at their
somebody to
baby
ear
mama.
problems.
Yeah, or they're having a bad phone call. All right, so coming back to Toys R Us, what's our pitch in the road to recovery? So we know that we've lost on the digital market. We know that our sales are declining and we want to have a rebound. So what's one thing that we could start with to get our voice of the customer?
uh like for if I was doing it in today's market, I would definitely partner with like influencers or younger creators, or maybe uh market on Facebook more, since Facebook, has a lot of, I don't know if this is true, but from like a Gen Z perspective, that's like where the older generation is. They're starting to have kids, whatnot.
I agree with the influencing. I think they should start small, kind of test areas just to see what the voice of the customer sounds like in whatever market or area they're in.
And
I
so
mean,
now,
I
mhm,
feel like they can turn like stores into like play zones, like host birthday events, and people will have this nostalgia as to, oh, this is what I used to remember as a kid, and parents will want to take their kids over there to experience what they experienced as kids. And also another thing will be, back in the days they had oversized stores. They can decide to have like go more online now, and buy online, pick up in stores, something like that.
I like that. That sounds good.
yeah,
Make it like
no, it
they did
does
with Blockbuster as an Airbnb, right?
kind of bring some of that nostalgia
Exactly.
meets like introduction to younger generations and maybe close the generation gap just a little bit.
Exactly.
So what's that chiming?
Oh, that's me. I'm sorry.
That's
I
okay.
I
I'm gonna
got
mute, I'm gonna mute you, Zach.
I
Yeah,
got
kidding.
over 500 requests on LinkedIn.
Oh wow. Okay, so now that we've established the voice of the customer, let's talk about project charter. What would be a good project charter for everything we just discussed about, digitization market, reaching Gen Z, having maybe a certain store with dedicated play area and kind of getting that template formality down. What would be a good project charter for this? And I know we're gonna run out of time, but we'll do the best we can. We'll try to encompassing this. So what would be
Objectives,
go ahead, Antoine.
set the objectives.
Set the objectives. Okay.
Um, what's the business case?
Do a business case. Yeah, that's what we do at BPA as well too. Before we do line replacements or anything, we start off with the business cases, the need, the why.
Well, sometimes I get it confused between business case and use case.
Right. Business case is pretty common too. So it's establish the business cases to why we need this. Set the parameters for what are we going to need, right? What is our buy-in? So that we're calling that
How about target customers,
target customers,
and what kind of features it's gonna have?
stakeholders,
Stakeholder
stakeholders,
engagement,
stakeholder engagement,
Definitely define
Values?
the budget.
How about
budget.
values?
What is our trajectory to have see process improvement? What timeline are we looking at? What
Success metrics?
areas? Success metrics. How are we measuring those metrics?
How about
Uh,
risks
Milestones.
and constraints?
Risks and constraints. Defining early on scope creep and why not going into the weeds is a good thing. I mean, go somewhat into the weeds, but don't get lost on the bunny trail. Knowing the budget is vital. Don't have cost overruns. Don't
risk,
under anticipate risk.
risk, risk.
Yep. Okay, so then who
Ooh, can
wants
I
to lead
bring it
this
in?
next?
Can I add a learning lesson? Well, I should probably wait till everybody comes back. But like, isn't it funny when you start working on stuff, like people have different perspectives or lenses on what the problem is,
They do.
right? And you're like, somebody's trying to work at it from this angle, and they're like running around in circles, and and they might be multiple problems, but I want to know what the biggest impact is. Like, where am I throwing my money the way the most? And that's how you have to look at organizations. and especially when you're doing continuous improvement, is where is the need? Because we only have a few, right? We can't have everybody be working on all kinds of shit because we still got to work on projects at the end of the day. Okay. Anyway, thanks, Tom.
From
I
Should we come up with a problem
Individual.
statement and project objectives?
yes.
so the problem statement, I'm looking at like a Gen Z lens. Like I don't think most of the younger folks know really what Toys R Us is, and maybe getting the name back out there. So what someone
So
mentioned
branding, we're
earlier was
talking
the
about branding.
nostalgia thing.
So like
But
Nike knows, Air Jordans is branding, how do we brand? I mean, this is getting into more marketing and NBA stuff, but like the branding piece of it, how do we get that back out there again so Gen Z does digest and understand what Toys R Us was?
Well, they
or
mentioned earlier influencers. That's what you mentioned,
hmm
Influencer.
Chang. Pair up with the influencers, especially since social media is extremely huge and everybody has it. I don't think I know too many people without a single social media account. So working with influencers that are in the customer target markets that you're looking for is probably going to be the biggest way to get your brand going again.
like for right now, there's a lot of UGC creators, and that's like a really big market right now, especially for AI tools. Um,
What's
basically
what's
all the AI
UGC?
tools are using it.
What's UGC again? What is it again?
It's basically like organic user generated content.
Oh
So
yeah.
it's not actually organic by any means since they have a script and the companies give them like a hook, um, the storyline, whatever, all that. And then they just
Yeah.
have to make the video.
What's crazy is how you guys found about out us is like I don't do any more like we don't do any marketing like I don't I mean we probably should but a lot of our stuff is word of mouth because
Word of mouth definitely works still.
I
There's
know
Social media,
Super old school
LinkedIn.
though.
yeah it's old
Super
school
old
but
school.
when you got trust like I don't know I mean I don't know yet if we've built trust with you guys yet but like when you got trust with a company and they take care of students I just think it's like not the students or the customer I just think it shows right.
Agreed. You're not
I
asking
think
for
it.
money every 5 minutes, so that's good.
Absolutely. Like some of these things
Mhm.
are like they'll send you and they'll be like, "Hey, let me get your GI Bill," and you're like, "Whoa, whoa, hold on, you ain't took me
Oh,
on the first date yet. Like, calm down,
you got to
school."
buy me dinner first.
Right? Like, what the hell?
There's definitely advantages and disadvantages to both. Like if I was trying to purchase like a life insurance policy, I wouldn't do it through some influencer because how do I know to trust them? I would rather
Right?
know someone through my
Because they're
mutual.
paying. I take that back. I did do one time. I paid an influencer, but like I have a movie critic, and we paid him, and I think it was just because I wanted to meet my movie critic.
like being your hero. Just about.
Yeah, I know that's silly, but like he advertised for us. I mean, he really did. He does
The
like movie
associates
re
program, right?
movie
Yeah.
reviews for like Marvel and DC, and I was like, "Can I meet this dude?" And so I did pay for one ad.
So one of the other problems I think of when it comes to like the actual pricing of the product is that China, those manufacturers over there can just beat the prices.
Oh, dude, but
Like
why can't they
it's
beat the
ridiculous.
prices?
They manufacture everything. No?
Well, here's the thing. Oh, just for one example. So I'm an
Mm-hmm.
OSHA outreach trainer. I haven't even talked about that, right?
Mm.
But like, so I can like do your like general industry. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that, but other countries don't have safety health regulations. Like,
That is a good point.
and like, dude, the United States pays so much freaking money on health insurance, or not health insurance, but like safety and
Hmm
regulations, and like other companies. That's where the manufacturing costs get saved a lot of times because it's like, oh, we don't really need to engineer safeguards and invest in safeguards. We don't give a shit if they got nubs. Like they're still working, or we'll find somebody else. And like that's
Mm.
how it used to
Mhm.
be in the 20s. I'll get into that spill. I like talking about that.
Okay, so I guess the marketing strategy would be like quality over just on, or I guess you don't want to like defame the other products, but
I think this flows into the whole uh the thing that went on. I don't know if it's still going on, but the whole American made by American, that's a huge thing. I don't know if that's still going on at all.
Yeah.
mm,
We'll start talking about after this we'll go and we'll talk about like the tools. We'll talk about like the project charter or how do we utilize that. Hey, Anton, I'm gonna mute you, brother. Got some stuff going on in the background. But we're gonna talk about these tools that we can utilize and really Toys R Us, I just think they were running rampant. And instead of trying to fix one big issue, by the time they started to look at like, oh, our online consumer base, they had already invested like way too much into brick and mortar establishment,
mm,
right?
mm,
Do you think it
mm.
also could have been a thought, well, we've been on top for so long, we can't possibly imagine a scenario when we're not going to be around?
Absolutely. Like Blockbuster was the same damn way. And Netflix was like, hey, we got this really cool idea. And then, hey, we'll mail movies to people, and then it became an online streaming. I'll talk about that a little bit. I want to talk about that with the whole class. Absolutely. I mean, um, I want to go ahead. How much time
I
do we have
wonder
in
what if they
breakout?
use like a oh,
Do
they
we have
can't
any
really use like
breakout
a
room time?
Costco kind of
So they
structure.
have
But
all,
the breakout rooms
Yeah.
should be
Uh,
coming up on time soon.
I just closed them. They had like a minute left. I don't know because
I
I
was
wanted to
wondering
talk about this.
what if they try to structure it more like a Costco where they just wholesale the toys instead?
A
Yeah,
wholesale toy,
But
well,
like
you want to
they don't
buy,
have the membership though. That doesn't make sense for toys.
that's
Like
you could
right.
do a membership.
well,
People would pay for it, but it would be
I'm
like, you want 16 soccer balls?
Yeah.
oh yeah, I guess. Yeah, sure, like sports, maybe like more of a Dick's Sporting Good kind of wholesaler business, but
Yeah.
also
Maybe.
toys.
All
I
right,
think
guys.
also
I
important is
was
So,
really learning from the root causes of the problems of what actually didn't work and what needs to be improved upon as to what was the downfall. Surveys actually do help as well, those short text surveys that they're doing now for a lot of companies and
yeah.
getting that customer feedback.
That's
So
highly
what
important.
I'm gonna do? Give me just 1 second, guys. I'm gonna mute us all and then come back into this. Um, when we talk about continuous improvement and we look at these examples of Toys R Us or Blockbuster, I'll even talk about them, right? Um, we want to look at, give me just 1 second. I don't know why it's not muted. Oh, I know why. Okay, mute all. Okay. We look at organizations and we say, okay, with Toys R Us, we don't have a crystal ball. Back then, we have historical data now that we can look at and say, well, that we didn't best perform here. But overall, customers kind of lost interest in going to a brick and mortar establishment. And, education became the same way, and you start to see a decline in higher education as well. And, the same way. And so we start to move to an online consumer base. Workforce education is starting to become this approach. And you guys are really fortunate to be here because now we start talking about um, uh, different tools in the define phase to analyze these problems, right? We've talked about, there's good paying careers in Lean Six Sigma, and the reason that they're good paying is because you're learning about problem solving methodologies to encourage and facilitate growth in organizations. Let me do this. Let me pull up the next slide. Tom, I gotta let me get it from here.
Perfectly fine.
Just letting you know, Tom, we don't do 2.5 in lives in the online lecture, okay?
Okay, got it.
Make sure. Yeah, I'm glad you guys got to network. We'll do more breakout rooms like that. Did you guys like the little breakout room activity? Did it work out? I mean, sometimes people just don't talk, and I don't know, you can't motivate people to do that. But did you guys like that for the most part? Yeah. All right. Nobody was weird, right? Like sometimes I get it like where people think that like this is like a dating site. I'm like, no, man, just leave that weird stuff alone. She ain't here to date you, bro. She here to focus on this stuff. So we start talking about history of Lean Six Sigma, right? One of the things that I like about this program is it's been around, over a century now, more beyond that, but it came from pretty simple patterns, but it started to really grow after the Industrial Revolution in America. There are a lot of cool people that are pivotal, and I've had the experience to work with trainers that have worked with some of these people like Bill Smith, Edward Deming. A lot of my lecture points coming from learning directly from these leaders. And we'll start with Henry Ford, right? What was Henry Ford known for? He was known for creating the Model T, right? The Ford Model T was uh, there was multiple vehicle brands at that time, but what was remarkable was not just the Model T's innovation, it was Ford's ability to create this sort of mass assembly line, right? Standardizing practices and standardizing an assembly line. Walter Shewart, the father of statistical process control, is often credited to Walter Schubert, right? So I might say you might see it on an exam, who's the father of statistical control or statistical process control or SPC. This is going to be Walter Schubert. We'll talk about Dr. Schubert on more tomorrow when we go into the measurement phase. But he's an American engineer and statistician who made significant contributions to the field of quality control. You got Edward Deming. Now, Edward Deming created the Plan, Do, Check, Act, right? PDCA. He created the Deming 14 points of quality management. When I think of Lean Six Sigma, a lot of people think that have been practitioners for this for a long time. It would not exist without Edward Deming's research, right? He basically went around and he was an industrial psychologist, an industrial engineer prior to them having that field, right? And he kind of created that census of finding out what are the best practices, how do you encourage growth in organizations. Now, that Edward Deming comes around and during this time frame we have the Hawthorne studies, right? Out of Illinois at Chicago Electric. And they start asking people, how do you feel at your job? Well, all of a sudden you start seeing growth and development in organizations because it just wasn't the upper management thinking about solutions. It was that lower level that saw it from a different perspective on how to increase efficiency on their end and how to make their jobs better. You start seeing advancements in technology. Well, with the advancements in technology, you start to see more advances in quality management practices. This is where Lean Six Sigma, the international standards of organizations, ISO 9001, the additional certification I was telling you guys about. But essentially, the standards became a practice of quality management. Well, why do we have these standards? Well, a big part of these standards is because of Joseph Duran, a quality management guru in the field of business and industry. He created the role of quality management. You got Bill Smith. Bill Smith is he's like the guy that created Lean Six Sigma. He took all this stuff and all these best practices and put it together at Motorola in the late 80s, right? Like 87 time frame. But he's credited with the coin of Lean Six Sigma. They called it something else back then, but They called it 4.5 Sigma, but it didn't roll off the tongue. And I'll explain why they changed it, especially when you get into the quality management and the metrics phase. Dr. Mirwan Meta, so this is the practitioner that I learned directly from. He's a world-renowned researcher and writes for ASQ, writes for universities and their research, and he publishes a lot in the Lean Six Sigma Journal. Um, but they talk about standardizing practice and making education affordable and accessible. And this is where the biggest push for Lean Six Sigma kind of changed with these individuals. And we know Lean Six Sigma today as Lean Six Sigma because of the fact um, these individuals went through the effort to standardize and document best practices in organizations and really lead the charge on quality management systems. Dr. Mehta is a pretty good researcher. You don't need to purchase his book or anything like that. He publishes his stuff, but he does the Champions course. He's not going to make it in this course. Next course, he will be able to make it. So if you see a Champion course pop up, I highly suggest you guys enroll in that one when it becomes available because he'll be the lecturer for it. So you get to learn from one of the higher practitioners. Edward Deming, 14 points of quality management, created the Plan, Do, Check Act, right? The PDCA model, it's basically four logical steps, and you'll see over time it evolved into what Lean Six Sigma is in the DMAIC system. But for right now, the MAIC system or the PDCA file is just a four-step process: plan, do, check, act, right? You'll see it in different literatures and study. So if you see it in the slides and I say check instead of study, keep in mind in different literatures, this note is different things. But this is something I want you guys to encourage your workforce. Um, Empowering your junior leadership to make decisions at their level, right? The Marines, you might know this as OODA loop, right? That's probably familiar to you in that realm. But it originated from the Deming cycle.
So OODA loop, where did it actually start?
Yeah, I want to know that.
So the OODA loop actually is an aviation term, and it was fighter pilots making instantaneous decisions while they're flying, and it was to observe. So they observe where they are, i.e., in space. Are they right side up, upside down? Are they in a bank? They then orient themselves to that immediately. They decide and they act. And that's all within that fighter pilot realm of within 2 seconds, they have to make a decision of what's going on. And you can look at that. The other side of that is it translated over into the artillery in that they would observe, someone would observe where they wanted a round placed. They would orient the weapon to it. They would then do or launch, and they would look for an effect to see how they needed the next artery round. Nope. The next lob to go down range. So two places where that OODA loop actually came in. The Marine Corps was both, but the Air Force was with Air Force and the Navy were with the fighter pilots.
Yeah. And another thing I want to bring up too is like if you're coming to us from the military side of the house, like some branches have like airspeed and they might call it something else, right? Airspeed is usually just like a military term. That doesn't really translate over into the industry. I had somebody come to me and they were like, "Well, I'm a black belt in Airstream, and I keep putting it on my resume and I'm not getting hired." And I was like, "Well, that's because they have no idea what the hell that is. It's not recognizable." And so you're starting to see a big push in the military where they're starting to change the name of some of these things to align more with workforce credentials. So back on this, right? Thank you, Dr. Nielsen and Tom, for kind of contributing there. The PDCA cycle is, looking at, um, 4 steps to complete some type of process improvement. Henry Ford's known for that Model T, right? He comes into one of the things that I really like about Henry Ford is after World War II, right? How do we end that? Well, we dropped some nukes on Japan, right? Devastated their economy. What was cool about Henry Ford is he went over to Japan and he said, "Hey, look, I want to set everything aside. Let's improve your process." Well, all of a sudden you start seeing Toyota where, you know, Ford's making 100 vehicles a month. Toyota's making 1,000 vehicles a month, right? And they're able to kind of they adopted Henry Ford's practices, and Toyota became a pivotal contender by building off of Henry Ford's model. And the Toyota production system, TPS, is what Lean Six Sigma's based off of in the industry, and we'll talk about that as we go into the management practices. Walter Shewart, right, worked at Bell Laboratories. Well, in statistics, we have something called Bell, and it's Bell what? Bell curve, right? Walter Shewart is considered the father of statistical process control. He worked at Bell Laboratories and he helped popularize the theory of normal distribution, right? Normal distribution or Bell curve. Lean principles originated um, in the early 1900s. Frederick Smith is considered, the father of scientific management. He's not talked about as frequently because of his quote unquote racism, but he started that as lean processes. So when we look at lean principles from what it's known today, basically there's this kind of flow to lean principles. We define the value, right? What do you define value as, folks? Well, anything the customer wants. Well, let me take that back. Anything that the customer needs in that process, right? Yeah, we want to adhere to the customer, but sometimes, like, have you guys ever had unrealistic demands by customers? Like, sometimes they want to make pigs fly. I've never seen that, but we want to define what the value is to them, but also align that value with the organization's best practices. So it's defining value. Well, throughout the week, I'm going to show you guys how to map the value stream. How are you going to map your processes? And then we create a flow through those processes. And basically, when we create a flow to it, it's just moving along in the next step, right? It's autonomous. We don't have that product waiting at that between step 1 and step 2. We've got it moving through as fast and efficient as possible. We establish pool, right? When we talk about establishing pool, your customer is pulling that product through the assembly line, or your customer is pulling that banking process for mortgage through the entire process to the end goal of that customer what? Closing on that house versus when they first started the closing process. There's a process in there, but the customer's pulling it in as efficiently as possible. We want to finish that process and hand the customer a good product. Next, we want to establish we've already talked about establish, but we want to pursue perfection, right? This is what gets my ass more times than anything as a continuous improvement consultant, is because of the fact that oftentimes we want to continuously grow. And when we start working on projects, see where you want to guide your teams. It's hard when you're more experienced in these tools and you've used so many things in different areas that you apply it, right? So you want to sometimes be as simple as possible. And we want to get our process as fast as possible, as quick as possible, and it's the lowest cost as possible, whether that's time investment from people. And, we don't want to have material that stays there. And so we want to pursue that perfection to push that material along. And I know I refer to a lot of things through manufacturing. It's an easier training concept to, saying you produce a product and move a product. So, um, but this applies in the banking realm, whether it's, moving the paperwork or the process along in each phase of it. We want to be as quick as possible, and that's where the lean side of it comes from. Statistically, are we going to be perfect? No, but we want to strive to get there. We talk about total quality management systems. Total quality management systems, Toyota production systems, you're going to see they align. They're not exactly symbiotic, but enough for training purposes to say that, the Toyota production system could be interpreted as total quality management systems. Customer focus, continuous improvement, employee involvement, process centered, integrated systems, strategic approach, data-driven decision making, and communication. When I look at all these aspects of it, really I want to kind of involved with process centering and having a integrated system, right? I think I think all of these are really important, but from a statistician side of the house, I want to make sure your process is centered. You may not think of it from that perspective, and that's okay. But as you start to look at better quality management practices, you want to have a stable process. And how do you have a stable process? Keeping that process as consistent as possible. Next thing, define phase tools. This is where we're going to actually go in some tools of Lean Six Sigma. Let me see what I've got pulled up on here. On your day one material, you guys go to day one. I have a project charter example. This is a basic project charter. This basic project charter goes through, identifies, basic terminology in regards to a project. I'm going to go over a project charter real fast. It's in our slides and you'll see it again, but I want to give you a template to go off of so you can use a project charter to establish your own project. Oftentimes in project management realm, your project charter is like your living, breathing document. Essentially, the project charter evolves throughout the life cycle of the project. How often when you work on a project does your scope change? I mean, I feel like these other ones were pretty self-explanatory, but when you talk about your project, how often do your scopes change? Right? And is managing the scope of your project and documenting it an important thing, you think? Absolutely. Uh, we talk about scope creep. Can somebody put scope creep in basic terms and put it in the chat? What is scope creep? Yeah, a lot of good examples. Absolutely. You're kind of adding things to the project before it's finished and it keeps getting postponed, it keeps getting delayed. Okay. Business case. This is the reason we're doing the project. That's basically what a business case says. Right? In this example, to increase orders per sales team members by 20% from current levels, to reduce the unhandled calls to 0%, to increase customer satisfaction by 10 points. right? Like, there's a reason for why we're doing this project. We're going to be working on a project that's like a pizza project, right? One of the coolest things with that is, we'll talk about like your business case is basically this is the reasoning we're doing it, and you're kind of building goals along the way. Constraints, time, budget, scope, quality. Uh, I, these are all things that are going to get in your way. And constraints is something that maybe slows down the process or kind of stalls it a little bit. Yes, Dr. Nielsen.
Yeah. One of the things that when we're writing a project charter that we want to make sure we don't do is we want to give realistic objectives. So using that SMART, that something that we can actually identify with, because I've had people write, we want to move sales back to or increase sales by $200,000 a month. Well, that may never be possible. So we want to make sure we're using those objectives and those things that are actually attainable. And that's why a 20% from a current levels. Don't say back to January's sales, because we may never be able to get back there. But we put this little increment. And then when we meet that, we might continue on. But don't give them something that we honestly can never achieve.
Because if that happens, they'll believe the whole system's flawed and they'll never believe in Lean Six Sigma actually working correctly.
Oh
Seen
yeah.
that.
You know how many
Yep.
companies I've done consulting for, guys, that like they're like, we don't want you to call it Lean Six Sigma at all because they just had a,
Yep.
a horrible experience with projects. And a
Yep.
lot of it just boils down to not having the right communication, or there could be multiple factors, but oftentimes it's communication.
It's that setting expectations early and
Yeah,
making expectations reasonable.
yeah, absolutely. No, I think that's you can see why a project charter, folks, helps kind of give that observation. It helps uh, get everybody on the same page, and it's a living, breathing document because it changes through the life cycle of the project. The next thing is project deliverables. You can't have a project and invest money into it from a stakeholder's perspective unless you're going to give me something as a stakeholder, right? Like if I'm a stakeholder and I'm giving you $30,000 or $100,000 or even more, what's going to be the return on that investment? And that's what I want to see in a project deliverable. I want it to be tangible, but I can also understand if some things are also intangible. Yes, sir.
I apologize. I used an acronym and I should define those acronyms when we use those. So I use the term SMART for objectives and using it through, because even in deliverables, using something that's SMART, meaning that it's specific, it's measurable, it's achievable, it's realistic, and it's bound to time. So there's a
Yeah.
time element. So
Timely.
remember, when we're dealing with any of these things, those are things we want to think about. Those portions of SMART.
One time I was teaching Brian, and we use acronyms so much, and a student asked me what SMART stood for, and and I was like, hold on, I gotta look real fast. I got so much. Like that's not the first thing on my mind.
Yeah.
That was so
For those
funny.
of you still in the military, that is also what you should be using to write good evaluations. And
Absolutely.
yep, even in the civilian sector, I still use those when I'm doing evaluations on my staff.
So we've got the project deliverables, right? What else we got? Project deliverables. We got the benefits, right? KPIs, what are the key performance indicators? You can list those baseline goals. A lot of this is, company driven or how their project charters look. Really, it may not look like this in other industries. Just wanted to give you a rough example. Um, Brian, how do I describe what steering committee is? Like that would just be stakeholders, right? Like, is that how I would just say steering committee?
Steering committee are the people that own the process. So it's normally the people, it's your project owner. So
Like
who
Scrum
owns it?
product owner, yeah.
Yes.
I think
And
they
that's
might not
why I
be
say,
familiar with Scrum though.
yep. But it's normally a department head, a director, a CEO, a senior vice president, something like that, along with a few of those others. They're
Yeah,
the people that make decisions. They're the ones that can give you the money and allocate the money and allocate personnel. So
absolutely.
that's the steering committee to keep you going in the right way. And then you've got the other side of that, your project team, and making sure that that project team is well versed across multiple areas and not keeping them in that singular place, getting
Yeah,
that well-rounded project team.
absolutely. So yeah, I mean the rest of it's kind of like it could be signatures. It really could be, company driven or different examples. You're welcome to look those up. I want to move us along to from Project Charter. We'll have an example of that in our project itself, and I'll go into it in more detail. Dr.
I will
Nielsen,
tell
do
you,
you?
having that steering committee defined, I was
Yeah,
working one project and somebody else came in and said, here's what we want you to be doing now. And we're like, wait a minute, you're not on the steering committee. And they just figured they could insert themselves into it and move it in a different direction. So
yeah,
having that steering committee is very, very important.
absolutely. So we got voice of the customer, right? VOC is a good way we can look at the tools of it. Tom, do you want to take over here? And I'll just click the slides.
Sure. Yeah, I'm more than happy to, Zach. Thank you. So, with roles of operational management, we have the voice of the customer, which we described earlier as understanding the voice of the customer entails grasping the desires and requirements of the customer, applying a customer centric approach. And then, based on that understanding, is you can get to the critical to quality or CTQ, is when we think about what defines quality, how we perceive it, we have to understand what the customer would consider quality. And then lastly, the Kano analysis. Lastly, but not least, of course, Kano analysis helps us comprehend the customer by focusing on three characteristics: basic, performance, and exciters. Next slide. So when we look at the voice of the customer, I know we really harped on this pretty big tonight, but it's so foundational in the Greenbelt program and beyond. Is defining the customer value is achieved through understanding the voice of the customer. What are they looking for? What are their constraints? What are their hinge points? What are their pain points? What are they looking for in quality? What is their definition of quality? Could a customer's definition of quality lay within their company mantra and their corporate objectives? Is that something we could find out, as we're discovering what the voice of the customer is? These are very important things. So, and then to provide those services coming from the voice of the customer. Next slide, Zach. Okay. So the types of data used for the voice of the customer, feedback surveys. So how often, and just drop it in the chat, have you ever been driven by some sub department within your organization, outside your organization, or just randomly because you went to like the movies at Regal and they're like, how did you like our service? Could you give us a 10-question feedback? How many have went through that, like Survey Monkey and others, to get that point of view and perspective back? My personal opinion, and yeah, there's quite a bit. Yeah, getting all the laughs and definitely the thumbs up for sure. The reason why I bring that up is because I feel if you get too far into surveys, you can get into scope creep. I've noticed that with some surveys, you start and it's like, oh, well, you have time to answer these 10 questions. Well, then these 10 questions turns into like subset A through C, E through D, and it's like, okay, well, this was not the point. You want to find that perfect balance of surveys. So with that said, they're great for feedback reports and they're great for collecting data. but you want to make sure the questions and the type of question and the scope of the question is well defined before you blast that survey out, so you know what kind of metrics and what kind of data you're gathering back. Secondly, social media and online reviews. Very important, because Google, obviously it's a 1 through 5 star rating. Yelp, same thing. And then they have the comment section. I sometimes, when I go out for restaurants, I'm actually searching for the lowest, like the worst review. This place sucks. It's awful. To, oh, they were the best service, time. And even on Google reviews nowadays, they can say, was it timely? Did they have, handicap parking, this and that? And so all those metrics are good for data collection, because you understand what's valuing to that customer. Brian, Dr. Nielsen, you had something?
I was going to wait until you're done. You finish.
Okay, let me
You're
just
going
get to
good.
these next two. Let me get to these next 2 points. So, customer service interactions. When I was I guess we could always say once, always cheap, but not trying to bring that into the class. More along the lines of when I was dealing with my first set of sailors as a chief petty officer. One of the things that my mentor told me is make sure with every sailor you interact with, it's not a transactional interaction, that you actually have intrusive leadership. You actually show humility. You show that you care about their problem, because what they're going to do is they're going to be like, it's kind of like training your relief. As you grow them as a leader, they're going to continue to perpetuate good leadership and humble leadership down the line as you go through. And so when you retire, you're going to be safe. So customer service interactions, not just our sailors, but how do we interact in the civilian world? When we get a bad customer service interaction, our first initiative is to go and actually leave a bad review. Or I want to speak to the manager. I know I don't want to throw the term Karen out there, but it's a new thing, obviously, since COVID. Customer service interactions are very important, because that develops with the voice of the customer. It's telling you what's right or wrong with your organization. And then to migrate to the last point before Dr. Nielsen speaks is integration with product development. So as you're collecting all these data and metric points, you want to harmonize that, figure out where your strengths, your weaknesses, and how you're going to utilize your voice of the customer's metrics in order to create better product development. Okay, Dr. Nielsen, please. Floor is yours, sir.
I'm going to relate this right back to something, but I want everyone to think about 3 words. The first one is data. The next is information, and the third is intelligence. So as I'm talking about this, early on in my career, I worked in the emergency room in the Naval Hospital, Rota, Spain. And the CO came in one day and started blasting my department head because our customer service satisfaction surveys were less than 1 on a 1 to 5 scale. And he said we had 30 days to improve our customer service, or we were getting new staff from mid-leadership all the way up. He was just very upset. So we started, trying to dig, and we actually had a quality improvement team, and they came over and they're like, well, you're asking the wrong questions on your survey. We had a survey that we gave to every customer that came in, every patient. And it was, how was your service today? Rate it 1 through 5. If you're in the ER and you want to rate the service, what do you think you're always going to rate that service as? Very few people rate it as anything above a 1. Mm-hmm. Because what does service mean? So the QI staff went back and rewrote a new survey for us, and we used it for 2 weeks. And it asked, what were your expectations when you came? And they were able to fill out what their expectations were. Did we meet these expectations? 1 through 5. Then they took those expectations and they started doing some analysis of them, and they came up with the 5 most common things that people expected, and they put that in a 5-question survey. How good was, on a scale of 1 to 10, how did we perform blank? How did we perform blank? Our customer service went from less than 1 to a 4.6 just because we changed what we were asking. Because if you don't understand what you're asking somebody to answer, you don't get data that you can make into information that you can then turn into intelligence to act on. We cannot act on data. So remember, when you're pulling data from any of these, that's raw data. That raw data has to be processed in some form to make information. Information, when put into context, can be used as intelligence, which is what we can then make a decision on. So when the skipper came back down in his 30 days and said, I don't know what you guys did to improve your service, but you guys, we need to look at that because we could use that across the entire hospital. And we said, sir, we thank QI because we actually didn't change anything we were doing, but you should really take QI to look at the rest of how the hospital asks for data. I hope that helps a little bit when we start talking about the voice of the customer, because we have to understand what that voice is telling us.
Absolutely. I agree, Dr. Nielsen, 100%. And that's where I was getting at earlier when we were starting the discussion on the slide about asking the right questions, knowing what you need to ask before you just blast it out there. Because if you blast out garbage in, is garbage out. So understand the scope of your questions and make sure that you're asking those right questions. Okay, Zach, we can move on to the next slide, which I believe there's a video with that too. So, Kano analysis.
Hi there, I'm the dude, Noriaki Kano, the creator of the Kano analysis. In today's industry, satisfying the customer should be a top priority. However, the cost of satisfying customers can be quite high. That's why the Kano model is such a valuable tool for understanding our customers' needs. But where do we focus our efforts? By using the Kano model, we can identify which features of a product or service will bring the most satisfaction to our customers, and which ones may not be worth the investment. This helps us to prioritize our efforts and resources, so that we can focus on developing the features that will make the biggest impact on customer satisfaction. The Kano model also helps us to understand the different types of customer needs, and how to meet them. By differentiating between basic needs, performance needs, and excitement needs, we can better understand the level of investment required to satisfy our customers. In summary, the Kano model is a powerful tool that enables us to understand our customers and prioritize our resources in a cost-effective manner. By using this model, we can create products and services that truly satisfy our customers' needs, and ultimately lead to greater success in the marketplace. Peace out, homies.
Kano analysis. Kano model developed by Professor Noriaki Kano is a useful tool for categorizing and prioritizing customer needs and preferences, making it particularly relevant for the voice of the customer initiatives. Thank you. Peace out, homies. All right, next slide, Zach. So the purpose is developed by Professor Noriaki Kano is a useful tool for categorizing and prioritizing as described in the previous slide, and the characteristics. When you are trying to understand what customers value in your product or service, the Kano model can help differentiate between basic needs, performance needs, and delighters or exciters. Okay, next slide, Zach. So it is especially useful when you're identifying features to add or improve in your product or service. Next slide. So in the Kano analysis, we're going back to the basics, basic needs, the bare essentials. In a hotel, a basic need would be cleanliness. It's expected, and its absence is highly dissatisfactory, which also leads to bad reviews on Yelp. Oh, they got bed bugs. Oh, they got issues with cleanliness. They don't clean the rooms every other day. There are other issues. So it's important to understand those bare essentials. Now, your performance needs. Are you looking for speed? So longer battery life in smartphones is a performance quality that leads to higher customer satisfaction. So, and then of course, the lighters. What is a bonus? A complimentary upgrade in a hotel can be a delighter, significantly boosting customer satisfaction unexpectedly. When I went to Florida just recently in Orlando, we were staying over next to Universal Studios, and we upgraded to a penthouse suite on the penthouse suite onto the 14th floor, and we did it with Hilton points. And we had views of Epcot Center, Evolve, Universal, and that was a delighter for me and makes me want to continue to invest in Hilton hotels as I go to travel. So, that's meeting that basic need, of comfort and level of security. So, Zach, we go on to the next slide. So your Kano analysis. So you look at your triangle, your trifecta, you have your performance at the apex, you have your basic at the foundation and your delighters. So what does your customer want? If you look at the balance of this three pointed triangle, performance, basic, delighters, go ahead and click to the next graphic. Yeah. Kano wins. There you go. An old Mortal Kombat reference. So who is your customer? The business, development team, and digital awareness. So when you're speaking to digital awareness, you're talking about the footprint on the internet. What market share do you have for sales? What are the customers and reviewers of online? So what are your reviewers online saying about your business or about your restaurant? The development team, who's on your development team, and how are they strategizing how you're going to put your portfolio out there? And then of course the business is what are you selling and what are you providing to a customer that they're going to be able to utilize in a need for a marketplace. Zach, next slide. Take a break. Okay.
Let's get through our break because we're almost finished up tonight.
Okay.
Maybe like 1 second.
Yep, no problem.
Somebody was asking about Kano model. We're not going to get into developing it tonight, but we will get into it in the future.
Yeah. When we get into more of the data analysis, I'm gonna get into a little bit more. It's a basic tool in the define phase, so all right. So, I wanted you guys to do, if you go to your zip file, and I want you to open up your project. Couple things I want you guys to pull up. So let's go to your project. And you guys go to your Lean Six Sigma project. And I want you to open up your project case study, Primetime Pizza. It'll look something like this, my friends. Let me zoom in just a little bit more so you guys can see it. There you go. I want you to start looking at this case study at some point before tomorrow. It really shouldn't take long for you guys to just read through. We'll start working on our project now. We have so much we do in class, and then you have a little bit of stuff, just a little bit of stuff you do on the outside a year, but kind of gearing towards Lean Six Sigma and using this. We'll get into more of the project tomorrow. But I want you to start with reading through the case study between today and tomorrow and just kind of taking some notes about some of the issues you see. You're just going to take, little issues on some of the things you read through, right? We'll come back to class tomorrow and talk about it. So we have that, and there's some project guidelines, project requirements, your project qualitative data. I'll get into more of these as we go through the week. You're welcome to read through this zip file in advance and look at some of the videos. If you want a recap, and I believe if you go into day one, we have the pre-recorded lecture of today. It won't be the same lecture because Dr. Nielsen wasn't with us or Tom teaching, but it's a previously recorded lecture. The overview of the notes, kind of what we talked about today, and an example on a project charter. We're going to break up the project charter into the project a little bit more tomorrow. If you want to look a little bit ahead tomorrow, we have the day two material. You're welcome to look through all of this. I've got some quick Excel tools, some measurement phase notes, some pre-recorded lectures. You're welcome to look at any of that. It's not required to get into tomorrow's session, but I highly encourage if you want to look it over. But that kind of wraps up tonight's session. I don't want to keep us super late. The first day, I know we got a lot of stuff. It's a Monday. You guys got to get ready for work tomorrow. But really, that's all I want you to do. I want you to go in and I want you to look at the case study um, for the project. And go through a little bit of this project folder and just kind of looking at some of the data, right? Um, and we'll show back up to class tomorrow. I get a common question, hey Zach, can since now that I know this program's real and it's not some foreign country trying to get my money, like I have some friends that could really use this certification. Can they join the class tomorrow? Absolutely. But they need to go through day one pre-recorded first. So if you can help us, they're welcome to attend. But they just have to kind of join us on day two. So, that's a common question I get. Um, so yeah, that's gonna be kind of it for tonight's lecture. I'm gonna hang around a little bit. We're gonna have some main breakout. I mean, just it's just going to be the main class. But I don't have anything else for us tonight. I'm looking forward to really seeing you guys tomorrow. Stay engaged with us. We're going to be here tomorrow and throughout the week. It's going to be a really productive week, and I look forward to seeing you guys and helping you on your journey. So good night. And I will see you guys tomorrow at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Please don't be late. I'm
Is
gonna
Robert going to ask a question? Robert, you had a question? You still in here?
He may not be able to unmute.
Yeah.
So, oh yeah,
Okay.
I'm gonna allow him to unmute so that way he can ask his question.
Hey, sorry to interrupt. I found it. I seen that you put the link in the chat, so I'm registering, I guess, to get the files now.
Okay,
Okay.
great.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Hey, Zach, great class tonight. Definitely enjoyed it. Dr. Nielsen, look forward to tomorrow. Zach, maybe we can get offline and we talk about how tomorrow should go and
Yeah.
expectations, all that good stuff.